get. You're going to like this.
And I'm so proud that the White House and our administration is filled with so many women of such incredible talent.
Beast mode.
3, 2, 1.
Just since you raised the issue of Mrs. Clinton's book having a false narrative and false accusations, could you point us to a couple specific accusations in the book that you believe are factually incorrect?
I think probably the biggest one is any place within the book where she lays blame for the loss on anyone but herself.
It's a lot of Democrats that like to ignore Keith Ellison and Cory Booker. They love to fight and champion women until they disagree with them.
That's not what I said, and I know it's hard for you to understand, even short sentences, I guess, but and please don't take my words out of context. But when journalists make honest mistakes, they should own up to them. Sometimes, and a lot of times you don't. But there's a difference. There's a very big... I'm sorry. I'm not finished. There's a very big difference between making honest mistakes and purposefully misleading the American people, something that happens regularly.
Folks out there who have said, you know, there's a cause and effect. He watches something on Fox and Friends, and then he tweets about it. Is that what happened this morning, and does that go on?
I'm sure you're disappointed he's not watching CNN.
But a lot of CNN, if you don't mind.
I don't think that's true. Your numbers would be higher. I don't have any problem stating facts. No, John.
Thank you, Sarah. Just 5
I know
minutes
that's
ago.
something you probably do have a problem with, but I don't.
This is the success of the Democrats in the first 100 days in Congress. Here it is. There's nothing.
I admire your moxie sitting there with the CNN Chiron right near you talking about credibility issues.
That should make people feel very good about democracy. It should make them feel really great that a campaign that I managed to its successful end did not collude with any Russians. We're accepting apologies today, too, for anybody who feels the grace in offering them. And let me get back in your face, because you're such a smart ass most of the time, and I know you want this to go viral. A lot of these people don't like you. There was no collusion, and there certainly was no criminal conspiracy with any Russians. When I needed to find negative information about Hillary Clinton and how to beat her, I looked no further than Hillary Clinton.
You are going to see a change in the way we do business. For those that don't have our back, we're taking names. What we witnessed here today in the Security Council is an insult. It won't be forgotten.
The UN has been Israel bashing for decades, and what we are trying to do is make sure that they understand there's a new administration in town. We're not going to put up with it.
For anyone that says you can't get anything done at the UN, they need to know there's a new sheriff in town.
The United States will not be told by any country where we can put our embassy.
Attributes does Nikki Haley bring to a team?
Strength.
Nancy has a temper tantrum. And you say he's crazy? He won. You lost. He's on a mission to change the course that Obama and Clinton charted. We've got the lowest unemployment in half a century.
The truth is dead, and the media has murdered it. Journalists are supposed to tell us what they know, not what they think, but they're not doing that. They're not doing their jobs. Their job is to gather facts to create a story, not create a story and then gather facts to fit into that story.
AOC has completely lost her marbles. I think she's living in banana land. Earlier this week, she called herself the boss for coming up with the Green New Deal. How are you the boss for coming up with a plan that doesn't work? Like, are you sure that the Green New Deal's not like what you're putting in your pipe and smoking every day? I don't understand. I can come up with plenty of plans that don't work.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
May I ask you a question? And wait a minute. No. You can't ask me a question.
Because you can't answer the question.
Oh, you can't answer me a question, honey. I can't answer. So don't even answer.
What attracted the father of the Orlando terrorist to your candidate?
He's a mentally ill individual.
Oh, that's what attracted him. I get it.
Pardon me?
What attracted him to your candidate? And your answer was he's mentally ill.
His answer that... Stop smiling.
Thank you very much. You have all been very kind to Donald and me, and we are excited to be with you at this historic convention. I was very proud to become citizens of the United States. The greatest rights on planet Earth.
I wore the jacket to go on the plane and off the plane, and it was for the people and for the left-wing media who are criticizing me, and I want to show them that I don't care. You could criticize whatever you want to say, but it will not stop me to do what I feel it's right.
Well, good morning. How are you? How you all feeling? Really? That's it?
No one's tired?
Looking
No,
all
right?
bright-eyed and bushy-tailed out here. My name is Stephanie Hamill. I'm the video columnist for The Daily Caller.
And I'm Amber Athey. I'm the White House correspondent for The Daily Caller. We're a conservative... The Daily Caller is a conservative news outlet. We believe in the relentless fight for truth. We despise corruption, and we love freedom in the good old US of A.
USA, 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 USA,
USA. And for those of you that don't know, we were co-founded by Tucker Carlson.
He's quite a guy. I can't get enough of him just owning the libs in those segments where he just starts battling it out with them, because he is always right and he backs it up with facts. So, Amber, when was the last time you were in a room with this many women?
I honestly can't remember a single time. What about you?
Well, it wasn't that long ago. It was actually at the Women's March.
Uh-oh.
Don't worry, I wasn't participating. I was just there to expose their hypocrisy. And And they had a lot of ridiculous things to say when I started asking them questions. Think about the leader of the Women's March, Linda Sarsour. Boo, huge boo. And also Tamika Mallory, she didn't want to condemn an anti-Semite, Louis Farrakhan, when she was asked on
Totally
TV.
normal, right?
So, yeah, very normal. So I just can't believe the hypocrisy. And the people that go out there, they really had no clue who they were out there supporting.
No idea.
So anyways, it's great to see you guys. I love that you don't have the crazy pink hats with the body parts, the blow-up dolls, all of the crazy things that you see out there. You guys all look showered too, which is nice.
I think it's so wonderful to see a room of smiling, happy faces, because when you see a lot of these marches on the left, like the Women's March, everyone seems so angry all the time.
Very angry.
You guys are happy warriors, and we're here to celebrate conservative women, celebrate conservative values, and I love that. And you know, the left claims that they like to celebrate women. They claim that they like to empower women, but only if you're the right kind of woman. They don't want to celebrate these women. I mean, look at CNN's Chris Cuomo mocking Kimberly Corbin, a rape survivor who chooses to protect her family and her children with guns. And look at Kirsten Gillibrand. Just yesterday, she endorsed the opponent of Joni Ernst in the Iowa senator race, saying that we need more female representation in the Senate, apparently not realizing that the woman she was opposing is, in fact, a woman. Because guess what? You don't count to the left if you're a conservative woman, if you're a Republican woman. And that's why this conference exists.
Yeah. I will say it ain't easy being a conservative these days. I'm the daughter of an immigrant, and I'm constantly called a racist, a white supremacist, all of these other crazy, crazy things just because I'm conservative, and I'm not afraid to show it. And I am just amazed by what Turning Point has done. This event just blew my mind. Yesterday was the first time I had attended a Turning Point event. We didn't have these type of things in college, these types of events. And if we did, they were pretty boring. So we got to give Charlie Kirk and all of the staff at Turning Point USA a round of applause for what they're doing. This is incredible.
The turnout is incredible, the music, the speakers, all of it is so amazing. Like you said, when I was in college, the conservative female events that we had, they had maybe 50 people, and they were very policy-oriented. This is fun. This is a hell of a lot of fun.
Well, we don't want to take up all the time here because I never stop talking and neither does Amber.
No.
So our next guest, he has swagger like Jagger. Apparently that's a boomer joke. So we'll give the stage to him.
All right, guys, who's hype? Let's go.
Yeah.
I like block these haters out. I mean, they get to talking, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm my own man. I'm a grown man. I know what I believe.
Y'all already on your feet. Hold your signs up and make some noise. Okay, so I'm gonna have y'all stand up. Y'all gotta stay standing, all right? When y'all rolling with me, it's all action, baby. So what I want y'all to do is, I want you to high five the person next to you and say, the power is in you. Don't sit down yet. Don't sit down yet. Don't sit down yet. I want you to get this in your spirit, point to yourself and say, the power is in me. All right, now y'all sit down. So every time I come to this event, obviously I've been here twice, I get so passionate and I gain so much energy and power from all of you guys. It is so exciting to see so many young women come out, so courageous, so excited, so bold, that it just makes me smile. Y'all give yourselves a round of applause. But I want to tell y'all this. And some of you know, some of you probably don't. I wasn't always like this. I wasn't. The left pretty much forced me into becoming conservative. With all of the BS that they spew on a day-to-day basis, all of the mess that they portray and project on us forced me to change my mind. When the left began to attack who I am fundamentally is when I began to change. When they started to attack police officers, when they started to act as if the men and women who serve and protect this country wasn't worth a dime, that's when they lost me. That's when they lost me. When you start attacking my faith, that's when you lose me. And I'll tell you this, the reason why I'm such an activist, why I'm so passionate, is because when it gets to the core, right? When it falls to the core of who you are, and I feel played, right? I feel like they've been lying to me. They've been creating a reality that don't exist. They put me in a box. They wanted to make me feel like this country didn't belong to me, as if I'm in a foreign land, as if I'm not responsible for obtaining the American dream just like everybody else. And when they do that to you, and I know a lot of you guys can relate, that's when you have to transition and have to move. But I'll tell you this, where my change really came is at the cross. Where my eyes began to open was far before politics. It started with Jesus. In 2008, I was a very different person, right? Gold teeth. Some of y'all heard the story. I had gold teeth in my mouth. I got tattoos all over my arms and legs. I got Young Savage tattooed across my stomach. I thought I was doing something, right? Listening to all these rappers, I thought that's the way that I should have been. But it was false. And then I went to Jesus. I went to church. And God changed my mind, for real. Not a game, not cliche-ish. It's not something that somebody just say just for the heck of it. But God really changed me. And that change really planted a seed in me to start really changing the way I think about everything. And it started with race. I was raised to be bent out of shape regarding race. Bent out of shape, feeling like white people didn't like me. That's how I was raised. And then God opened my mind to help me realize that at the end of the day, it has nothing to do with race. And that everybody in here, we're all a part of God's family. We're all God's children. No matter what color you are, no matter where you came from, no matter what your disposition is, we fall under the same family tree, and God is responsible for upholding that. And another thing that changed in me is I became pro-life. And I'll tell you this, I wasn't an advocate of pro-choice. I honestly just didn't care. It never crossed my mind to care or be concerned. But what God did to me was open up my understanding that, you know, at conception, that's a life. That is a human being. That is a human being. And it's, you know, I know they have this rhetoric out here that's like, oh, it's a woman's body, a woman's choice. Okay, it's your body, but you're now holding another body. When you guys have two different DNAs, there's two people. And unobstructed, from conception unobstructed, that's how all of y'all in here were born. That's how all of y'all exist, right? But let me tell you a story, because this is kind of another area where God put it in my heart to be pro-life, and then it manifested in my life. So when in 2009-10, I had a son. The girl that I was dating, and I don't advocate this at all, get married before you have kids. So, but you know, God can work it out. So my girlfriend got pregnant. She was out of the country. She was in Germany. And I'll tell you this is how trashy Planned Parenthood was. She was able to schedule an abortion from out of the country. And so this is what happened to me. She told me on the phone, she go, I'm pregnant. And in my mind, I said, you know what, God, I made a mistake by fornicating. I made a mistake by having sex without being married. But I'm not going to make two mistakes, right? So whatever comes from this, right, she decides to give life, and that's what my preference is. I'm going to be responsible as a man to take care of my child. And so she tells me on the phone, and I'll never forget this. She tells me on the phone, when I come back, we're going to go to Planned Parenthood, and we're going to see how far along I am, because I don't know, right? She didn't know. So we get to the front door of this Planned Parenthood facility. And at the time, I thought that Planned Parenthood was planning parenthood, not planning to murder your parenthood, right? And I thought it was a facility for women, really. I really honestly did. I said, you know, this place is pretty cool. They do a lot of stuff for women. This is specifically for women. She gets to the front door, and I'm thinking this whole time that we're going to see how far along she is. At the front door, she tells me, I'm sorry, I actually came here to have an abortion. And I was hurt. I was sick to my stomach, because in my mind, that's my child. And so, you know what I did? I prayed. I sat in the lobby and I prayed. And I prayed hard as I could. I mean, I was almost crying out to God. Don't let her go through with this and kill my son. I mean, I was in there for about 15 minutes of praying. Didn't care if nobody saw me. I didn't give a care. I was trying to connect with God so that my son could have life. I sat in the car. She was in there for about an hour. I said, man, she did it. She did it. She went through with it. I don't know. I'm hurt. I'm broken on the inside. I don't know what to think. She gets to the car. She get in the car. She's crying. And I'm like, you know, I guess she made the decision. And she stood next to me. She sat next to me and she said, you know what, Brandon? She was crying. She said, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And I honestly believe that my prayer saved my son. And I thank her for making that decision to not have an abortion. But I'll tell you this is why I'm so passionate too, because I feel like people forget when talking about abortion, they forget about the dad. They forget about the father. Because believe it or not, his DNA is mine. He's a part of me. And some of y'all see my son, the boy looked just like me. But also another aspect is that it ruins the integrity, and I know that y'all gonna hear all about abortion as it relates to women, but I'm just gonna tell you as it relates to men. It ruined the integrity of young men to be accountable. Because you know what they do? They decide they're gonna have sex and not be accountable and walk away from you because you can go to a clinic and have an abortion. I'm a firm believer that as a man, if you can lay down, and a woman, if you can lay down, then you need to take care of your responsibility from the cradle to the grave. And that's how I operate. I'll take care of my son, and I'm faithful to his well-being from the time he's born to the time that I die. So hopefully I go before he does. But I want to transition a little bit because I spoke about this last year, but some of y'all, who was here last year? Raise your hand. Dang, it's a lot of new people here. Well, congratulations. So last year, I spoke about visualization. I spoke about visualizing your dreams and how impactful and powerful it is that you gotta visualize and it will come true. It'll come to pass. Some of y'all who were here last year remember me talking about this kind of embarrassing story, but I told you guys that last year I was single, right? And I know it's very disappointing, but I was single last year. No, I'm just joking. But I was single last year, and I said when I used to fly on the airplane, I visualized that I would have a wife. And I remember flying on an airplane, and nobody was sitting next to me, and I literally, y'all probably think I'm crazy, I literally envisioned me holding my wife's hand right there in the chair, right? And so the visualization came true because I met a beautiful, wonderful woman that I'm gonna marry. Right over there, Korean. Wave your hand, baby. So we gonna get married. I just gotta save my money up to get that ring that she wants. She wants that big old ring. No, I'm joking. But that's the visualization. Some of you guys probably don't know, but before I started speaking across the country, I was a police officer. And I love what I did. I love what I did. Sometimes I want to go back, but I was Superman, right? I felt like I was Superman. I was a hero. And while I was doing the job, I always envisioned that I would speak around the country. I used to have dreams. So when I fly on an airplane, I would think about it and visualize me speaking out across the country. I would literally imagine that I had a speech to go to. I would take notes in my mind, and I'll say, when I go there, I'm going to talk to this. This is what the crowd looked like. All of that, I visualized it. And the manifestation of what I visualized has happened, and you guys are seeing the manifestation of that visualization today. And I want you guys to understand that that's not just for me. That every single person in here, you have a dream. You have goals. You have something that's in your heart that other people may tell you you're foolish about doing or thinking. You have it in your heart, though. Don't be afraid to express that. And I'd say this, don't be afraid to pull the trigger, right? Don't be afraid to go for it. I'll tell y'all this, in the middle of the night, at 4 o'clock in the morning, I've been thinking about starting a nonprofit. I said, you know what, why wait for it? In the middle of the night, I registered myself for a nonprofit. I currently have an LLC. I have a business. I'm an entrepreneur. And if I waited to the perfect moment, I'll still be waiting. But sometimes you gotta just pull the trigger. You gotta just go for it. And don't wait for people to give you approval. They'll never give you approval. Sometimes they secretly hating on you, right? They don't want you to be big time. They don't want you to be better than them, some of them. Some of them do, but they don't see the vision because God gave it to you, they didn't give it to them. So pull the trigger on your dreams. And another thing I want to get into your skulls, or get into your mind, if you don't leave here with anything else, is to be brave, to be bold. Listen, I want you guys to understand this. You guys have been ordained by God to have such power. And the left try to rip that power away from you. They try to take that power away from you. You guys don't realize it yet, and some of you guys are too young to even be thinking about this, but you guys are the life givers. You understand that? You guys are the only ones on planet Earth that can provide life in this country. And without you, there's no humanity. Without you, I don't exist. Does that make sense to y'all? You guys have power. You guys are a gift. But you need to be bold. Be courageous. And I like to go to the Bible. And if you don't believe in God, then envision somebody else. But my experiences with God. Look at Mary, life giver, right? Mary gave life to Christ. And was it a perfect scenario? You know, could she have made an excuse? I'm not ready. I don't think I'm ready, you know. I don't want this embarrassment, right? Because her husband didn't, do the do. So people were wondering why she's pregnant, right? At least that's what they said. But you know what? She didn't. She went through. Strong woman, she went through it. Now, knowing the fate of Christ, she still hung in there. She knew that her baby, his fate was that he would be beaten on the cross and killed. But you know who was at the cross? Mary, right there at the cross with her baby. Being strong, that's who you are. Not just in the realm of having a child, but in the realm of being strong. Because you know what? To be honest, all the disciples, they were running. You know, so they fled. They were nowhere to be found. They denied Christ. They denied him. I don't know that man. Y'all supposed to be his dog. Y'all supposed to be his homeboys. You don't know him now? Who was at the cross? The women. Strong, passionate, courageous. And another thing the left wants you guys to do is to be feared out of motherhood, to be feared out of your position, right? And it's nothing against entrepreneurship. I hope that everybody in here lived the American dream and literally embody what capitalism is all about. I really hope that. But if you are a woman who wants to stay at home and take care of your kids, there ain't nothing wrong with that. Probably the hardest job in the world is to take care of your own kids, right? You're sitting at home with them, they're acting up. I don't know, some of you people who stay at home already, you probably can attest to this. It's a full-time job. You don't get a break. You don't get no time off. You're at home taking care of your children, feeding their brains and developing them to be who you want them to be the best version of themselves. Nothing against women that don't stay home. But don't be afraid of wanting that. I remember hearing stories of young women who play with Barbie dolls, right? And some people, they feel like that, oh, it's wrong to play with Barbie dolls. It's like, when little girls play with Barbie dolls and I was playing with toy cars. You know why? Because I was visualizing that I would build cars. It's nothing wrong with visualizing giving life to this earth. There ain't nothing wrong with that. And I'm gonna say this, and then I'm gonna change it up a little bit. But young women, let me throw something at you. You can take it or leave it. When y'all are dating these young men, and I'm about to spill the beans on the young men, don't get mad at me, all right? Act with integrity. Do not allow a young man to have everything unless they plan on putting a ring on it. And the reason why, because we're slow a little bit, all right? We slow a little bit. So if you give us everything, why are we gonna pull the trigger? Why are we gonna marry you? We having marriage stuff without having a ring. But I'm telling you guys, you have the power. You need to stand up, have integrity, and therefore it'll help you with all these bad relationships you run into these low-life dudes. It'll help you because the right man, the right person for you, he will abide by your principles and love you and treat you with kindness and respect anyway. So I'm going to say this, then I'm going to open up for question and answer. So my slogan, and the thing that I say most often in every speech I give, because I feel like it's invaluable to present this, is that in the end, we will win. In the end of all of our heartache, pain, suffering, fighting against these liberals or whatever you want to call it, whatever your ailment is in your life, in the end you will win. And I'm going to give you a scripture. Psalms 108 and 13. I looked it up. I said, I need a scripture for this saying. And the scripture pretty much says that with God, you will have the victory. And that God will fight your enemies. So don't be confused to think that the battle that you're fighting against liberals, against all of the institutions that you go through, is a battle that you need to fight. You got to understand that God can fight the battle for you. And God can create the scenario that no man can undo. And I'm going to give you an example of Wolverine. And I know y'all know my Wolverine story, but some of y'all are new. Wolverine, this powerful fighter, he's out there, whooping butt, right? It seemed like, but at the beginning, he's always losing. On the ground, getting stomped out. I'm like, Wolverine, you got all these powers. How you losing like this? But it always seems like he recovers. And then he get up and he start whooping everybody, right? And then he wins in the end. He's victorious. And you wonder, why does he lose and he's winning? But he seems to win at the end of every time. Because the person who wrote that script, they already wrote his victory already into it. And so the person who's going to fight his battles, right, already wrote his battle and already wrote his victory. And so when I tell you that in the end you will win, it's because I honestly believe that a higher power has wrote your battle. And if you believe and you have faith and you act on it, your victory will be written out. Thank you, guys. So now I'm going to try to do rapid fire question and answer. I want to do 20 minutes, but I only got 12 minutes. So go ahead. I'm going to let the young lady in the middle facilitate the Q&A.
I don't know if you remember last night, but we met in the elevator. I said I would try and ask you a question.
Yes.
Okay.
Awesome.
So my name's Olivia. I'm a cop's kid. My dad's been in law enforcement for 26 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's kind of disheartening lately seeing how badly law enforcement is being represented by the media, how badly my dad's being represented. And a lot of people have a bad taste in their mouth because of law enforcement, because of how badly they're represented. How do you think that us in this room and communities and police officers in general can help bridge that gap and have compassion and love for one another?
Okay, great question. I think that we have to realize that some people, I hate to say this, some people may be a lost cause, right? Some people are going to hate police. I don't care what they do. Those are not the people that you're focused on, right? You're focused on presenting the truth. Because if you get caught up in these crazy radical people that you just argue with them online every day, like, well, police are not really bad, and you'll get lost in the shuffle. But all of us can go to a police officer when we see one and say, thank you for your service. As a former police officer, we got to be bold and tough and thank you. But on the inside, it's like, oh my God, somebody actually cares. We're not dealing with these crazy people all day. There's actually normal people that love us. So saying that to a police officer can be more impactful than you can imagine. Also being informed about policing in America. And when you have an opportunity to share positive things about police, share them. Also, don't be one-sided. If you see a scenario where you think that police officers are doing stuff wrong, I'm not saying you got to post on your page every day, but just be balanced and let people know that I love police officers, but I'm also fair. I'm not going to blindly support anybody. I'm going to be fair. But if you present those principles, I think that it'll start to change the direction. Also, when you have children, or if you have children, because there's not all young people without kids in the room, you got to implement to them and teach them about the value of law enforcement. The thing that I hate the most is when parents are like, oh, he's going to get you. They're going to take you away. That's not what police are about. What I used to tell parents, I would say, no, I might take you away, but I ain't going to take the kid away. But sometimes I didn't want to scare the kid, so I say, I'm going to give you ice cream. I'm not going to take you away. But you got to teach the kids growing up that police officers are very positive because 99% of police officers are doing great things every day. Thank you for the question.
So I'm trying to do the visualization thing, and I keep hitting a block when my visualization isn't like manifesting. So how do you deal with that?
You just gotta keep believing, right? Because this is the thing that I think is confusing sometimes, because you may feel like your visualization isn't manifesting, but it is. It just may take some work and time, right? Because let me tell you this. This is the example that I always use. When does an apple tree become an apple tree? It becomes an apple tree when it's a seed in the ground. It doesn't become an apple tree when it sprouts. It's already an apple tree. So you have to understand that your vision and your purpose is already set for you. It's just a matter of time before manifestation happens. Sometimes you have to go through some stuff to be prepared for what your mission is or what you really want to accomplish. So I'll say, hold true to it, never let it go, keep believing. And also because sometimes when we're younger, we may want or want something to happen that's not really the best for our lives. I want to play in the NFL. I cried like a baby when I didn't play in the NFL. I was dreaming about it every night. And now I'm like, thank God I don't play in the NFL because what I'm doing now is so much greater. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you for the question. And you were here last year, right? I remember you last year.
Hi, Brandon.
Hey,
my name is Molly, and I'm from Oklahoma City. I'm about to enter my sophomore year at Rose State. I just want to thank you for being a voice for the voiceless for preborn children. That really meant a lot to me. Isaiah 10:1 says, "Woe to them who enact iniquitous and oppressive decrees." So my question to you is, with the pro-life movement introducing multiple bills since 1973 that still remain oppressive because they permit the murder of preborn children just as long as certain criteria are met, if there was a movement that was intending to assert state sovereignty, defy the federal courts by completely abolishing abortion with no exceptions, would you support it?
Oh, 1,000%. I mean, there's some states that already implement things that they're very close to that. And let me tell you just real quick why I feel so passionate about this, because it's either murder or it's not. I don't understand why people say safe but rare. It does, if it's not harmful and it's not bad, then why does it need to be rare? Just do it whenever you want to. But people understand fundamentally that it's not really a good thing for people. And outside of the religious argument, I just don't think that it's valuable to society to perpetuate the murder of a child. Because if the thing that I always see happening is that a person say, well, isn't this a bag of sales or whatever they say, right? But if you were driving on the way to the abortion clinic and a person run a red light, boom, hits you while you're pregnant, and the baby inside of you dies because it's a baby, that person will be charged with murder. Let's say you live. That person will be charged with murder. It's a federal crime. So how then is it okay, or a person would be punished for murdering a baby at the stoplight, but you can go to the clinic and murder the baby? And let me address the rape aspect, because people like to talk about, well, if you're raped or whatever. I go back to is it murder or is it not? And then also I look at it, it's not the kid's fault that their parent was a dirtbag, right? That kid still deserves life. Another reason why I feel so strongly about that, because my grandmother was raped at 12 years old. She was raped and she had my mother. And every time I think about it, if my great-grandmother would have got my grandmother to have an abortion because she was too young or whatever, and they never forgave my grandfather, then my mama wouldn't be here, then I wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't be talking to you. Everybody has a purpose. We don't know how many cures for cancer or people who have these brilliant minds. Like, for instance, look at, I can't think of his name. No, Tim Tebow, I like him too. Ben Carson, right? Think about this. When people make the excuse and they say, well, I'm not ready. His mama wasn't ready. She couldn't even read. You know what I'm saying? She was in poverty. But she had Ben Carson, and she taught him how to read. She brought him up the best way she could. And now he's one of the most brilliant people to ever exist. So, you know, I'm just for giving life. And let's start there and work on, oh, that's my shirt right there. Dang, it came in the mail so fast. So that shirt says, life starts at conception, not perception. You can get that on theofficertatumstore.com. Next question.
Hi, Officer Tatum. It's so nice to see you again. My name is Asha. I have a question about changing the narrative from my body, my choice to my body, my responsibility.
Yeah.
Because as important as, we should get that hashtag trending. Because I feel that the abortion industry and the nihilism that it promotes and the lack of respect for life is having repercussions that go even beyond abortion. Like in Florida, we have the Baker Act to prevent if someone is at risk for suicide. Also, if a woman is struggling with an eating disorder, you can force feed her against her will. What do you have to say about the logical inconsistencies where if you're pro-choice, then why not let someone commit suicide if it's their body, their choice?
Right. I mean, you made a point for me. I mean, it's so inconsistent. Well, my body, my choice. Well, if it was really your body, your choice, when you give birth to that kid, then you shouldn't be able to come for daddy for that child support and you know, because you, as a father, I know, because I pay it, but you will go to prison if you don't pay child support. So it's really not your body, your choice. It's like your body, our choice, right? Because when you have it, I need to be responsible. And it's so inconsistent because nobody's okay with, just say a woman was pregnant and she went to the bar out there and she was knocking back shots of vodka. People be like, what are you doing? You're damaging the baby that's in you. Nobody's okay with that. And I feel like that they're not okay with that. But they have to challenge conservative values in order to be right, which they don't care how loony they become. And so your statement was very great. I feel like that they're deliberately inconsistent. Oh, you're right here. Okay, I'm over there.
This will be the last question.
Okay.
As a black man and a former police officer, what can we do to help bridge the gap between blacks and the police and pretty much heal that wound?
Okay. Good question. I like to consider myself American of African descent, you know. So I'm an American first, but I love nothing against you. So let me tell y'all this, and I'm going to keep it 100. And I don't care who I talk in front of, I say the same thing. I think that there's a population of black people that just, they're never going to change the idea of hating the police. It's going to be indoctrinated, and then they're going to watch films after films, celebrity after celebrity, and it's a group of people that just never, it's a majority, like a large portion of people who are never going to be okay with it. I don't care how many times I explain it. I don't care how many times me as being a representation will come out and talk to people. They still hate me. They still talk about somebody that did something 1,000 years ago. So, but what we can do as in law enforcement is to continue to do what's right and continue to call out inconsistencies in certain people who do wrong in law enforcement. And community policing is invaluable. I honestly believe that. Going out in the community. I'm not big on skateboarding and all that stuff, which is kind of cool, but that's not what we're here to do. We're here to protect your life. So us being projected into the community by protecting people. Now the left want us to, some of these people, they don't want us in the community. And then the crime rate go out the roof. But I think that we need politicians that are willing to say, I don't care what the narratives say. We need these police officers to be more equipped, better trained, and we need more police officers in the community to prevent crime. And the more that you prevent crime, the better situations become, the better the economic situations become in communities, and people will begin to really realize how impactful police are. So some people will never change. Kind of like what I said earlier, we just got to keep speaking the truth and being positive about law enforcement. And I'll say this too, and I know it's not the responsibility of probably most people in this room, unless you have a family member that's American of African descent. But black folks that have this big problem with law enforcement, they need to become law enforcement officers, right? They need to join the police department and serve their own community so they have no excuses. There's no racism. Do the job of your own community, and you don't have nothing to say to anybody else. I guess that was the last question. So who did that? That was good. She knew exactly how long I talked. So thank you guys. I really pray that you guys continue to have an excellent, wonderful time. I'm going to have y'all stand up one more time before I leave. Now, give your neighbor on whichever side a high five and say, the power is in you. And I want you to point at your own chest and say, the power is in me. God bless y'all, and I'll see y'all later.
That we were just really raised to believe that being in public life means that you're going to take criticism, but that means that we have freedom and people can speak out against their elected officials, which is a good thing.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Can everyone hear me? Yes? Hi? Okay. Hi. Oh my gosh, you guys look great. Thank you so much for having me here today and for being here. And I just hope I'm going to be able to encourage a little bit of you guys in like where you are in life right now. First, I have to say a big happy birthday to my dad. Because it's his 60th birthday today, and I don't think he'd mind me telling you that, so that's good. But I am going to be home tonight, and we'll hang out with him this weekend, so don't worry. So I'm being a good daughter. Well, we're at a leadership conference, and the funny thing is, I think that leadership it's one of the easiest things to define and talk about, but it's one of the hardest things to actually do. And I think when we think of good leadership, we have these phrases that kind of come to mind. We think of servant leadership is on there, where the leader is kind of putting the needs of their team first. We think of leading by example, where a leader works to act in the same way he or she requests of other people. Good leadership typically includes making hard decisions, not wavering, managing people well. And all of these phrases and stereotypes and assumptions about leadership, they have different manifestations when they're actually put into action. But they're all good ideas to keep in mind. But I think when we really need to think about what leadership is, we have to look at specific leaders. And we all want to be leaders, at least I'm assuming most of the people that are here, right? It's from the outside, it looks exciting and enticing. But I'm here to kind of share with you the not so pretty side of leadership, to kind of prepare you for being a leader in your field one day. And being a leader is desirable to us. It's something we want to achieve, right? If we have a certain level of ambition, maybe it's something that was ingrained in you at a young age. Maybe you had the opportunity to really flex those leading muscles, and that's good. But I can assure you there's a lot more to it than that, and there are hardships along the path of leading. It's not easy to be a leader, but it's necessary and it's important, and most things that are necessary and important are not easy. And leadership is lonely. Leaders stand out and are often set apart from the group. Last year I wrote a book called Where You Go, about my family and childhood and growing up with a father in politics. And I wrote about leadership. I started noticing the qualities of a good leader and the side of leading that isn't all that glamorous or fun or exciting. And I noticed how hard yet how impactful good leadership really is. So I traveled on the presidential campaign trail with my parents during the summer of 2016. And that was quite an experience. Everything happened pretty quickly in that scenario. So before I knew it, I quit my summer job where I was working at a camp, and I traveled with my parents to support them over the next few months. And sometimes we were traveling to multiple states a day, and my dad would talk at events and he would joke that I was babysitting my parents because I was kind of making sure that they were sleeping and eating and exercising. And growing up with parents serving in government, I'd always sensed a kind of detachment between them and some people they worked with. But when I was a kid, I didn't understand workplace dynamics. And it's not a bad kind of separation, but I honestly didn't give it much thought when I noticed we wouldn't go to staff parties or we wouldn't go to things after conferences and things like that. But on the 2016 campaign trail, I saw it again. And as an adult, I kind of noticed that's part of being a leader. And leadership comes with some of these unspoken rules. So in Where You Go, in this book, I wrote about this. I said to take the lead on something, you have to seek advice. You have to have followers, but you also have to be out on your own a little bit. To be in the forefront means to be separated, and it can be isolating at times. It puts you in front of the pack, so much so that you can't necessarily see the people running along behind you, even though you know that they're there. And we all have those people who are running with us. We all have teams to lead. And we have to acknowledge and recognize what these teams are, even when it's not obvious at first. And if they aren't, maybe we need to form them. Leadership is not limited to certain people that are at the top or in charge. Being able to lead others and to lead them well doesn't mean you have to have like a big staff or an important title or a role. We all lead every day in little interactions that we have, just by being an example. So lead people even when you don't think you're being watched, because you are. People are noticing you, and they're noticing how you treat others, and doing this well is a form of effective leadership too. And to measure the success of a leader, I think you have to kind of look at their team. We can describe all these phrases and qualities of a good leader, but if their team doesn't feel supported and challenged and heard, then they're not being led well. So figuring out how to do this as a young person can be really hard. As you're starting the adventure of your young adult life, some of you, it can be confusing and challenging as you're trying to come up with the values and ideas that are going to define your life moving forward. But this period in your life is essential, because when it comes time for you to possibly be out on your own at the front of the pack, you'll be ready. You'll have the stamina necessary to keep going even when it feels like you're out there on your own, and you'll be able to effectively bring that team with you. So as conservative women and men, you will have to take a stand in your life. I'm pretty sure you've already had to. So how you do this is just as important as doing it at all. To decide how to stand out and how to be different, you have to first figure out what the world expects of you and what values and standards you hold for yourself and how those two things differ. Everybody has expectations and stereotypes placed on them. Maybe you experienced that a little bit coming here today. Maybe some people in your life didn't really get it. You might have friends or family who listen to the voices of the world and go by that call and that beat instead of their own. It can be tempting to try to just tune out the modern day voices of the world, especially those who seem to have their own ideas about what success is for a woman in particular. That fulfillment only comes through a certain amount of status. But in order to lead in a way that sets yourself apart, it's also vital to understand what the norm is and what the trends are and what the voices of the world are saying, and what your friends and parents and colleagues and your generation wants from you. And then you can go your own way if need be. Our society tells us there's a specific way for people, especially women, to live. And sometimes it's a way that might not completely align with your values. But the truth is, we don't have to conform to any specific ideology set forth in culture. We can aspire to a higher truth and be content with holding ourselves to that standard. It's easy to talk about this in just a generalized way. And we all know moments that are going to come up in life that we can't plan for, and decisions will have to be made, and two paths will be laid out in front of you, and you'll have to make the choice about where to go. You're going to have a lot of different voices, good people, friends and family, that are telling you one thing, and you might have to do the opposite. So find out what it is you're capable of, and go do that, make a difference, and know that you might be a little lonely, but that's okay, because leadership is lonely. But it doesn't mean you're alone. So if we focus only on the fact that leadership is lonely, then we miss the point. Yes, you will be set apart in your life, and you'll have to rise to the occasion. And you may not know when or where, but it's going to happen, and that can feel isolating. But the reason we do what we do as women specifically, but as future leaders, is to pave a way for a new generation to run along behind us, to lift them up. If they don't see any examples ahead of them, then why would they aspire to be different than what society tells them they should be? There are a lot of assumptions and unspoken messages that are directed at women and young girls these days. We see it everywhere, from news media to college campuses to Instagram to television shows to music icons. It's almost impossible to avoid comparing ourselves to others or thinking that we're not doing life the right way. So you have to actively call out the lies that are told to us, and this includes the lie that conservative women are alone in their beliefs. If you stand up for something, you're going to be set apart, but this doesn't mean you have to believe the lie that you're the only one who thinks the way that you do. So if you felt this way, that means that you have a responsibility to let others know they're not alone, and that's what I kind of want to do here today. In the same breath, I want to let you know that leadership is lonely, but that does not mean that you're alone. If we think we're alone in our beliefs or our convictions, it's that much harder to keep going. So lead others well by showing them that their ideas and their dreams, their aspirations aren't so crazy. Show them by crashing through life in pursuit of your own goals and your own desires, and take them along with you for the ride. I shared a room with my sister for most of our childhood, and I used to tell stories to her to help her fall asleep at night. From a very young age, I knew that I wanted to be a writer and a storyteller. When people would ask me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I always said I wanted to be an author and I wanted to be a mom. And sometimes I also added in that I wanted to run an orphanage or something, but it was mainly just those two things. And I vividly remember some women I told this to giggling at me and telling me that being a mom wasn't a job. And they might have thought it probably equally funny to pick a career like writing that can be kind of all over the place sometimes. But since I've gotten older, I've looked back and considered why exactly I am writing. Why I'm studying religion and literature in grad school, why I moved to LA without a job after my dad was elected to be vice president, to work in the entertainment industry, which was another one of my dreams. And to be honest, when I think about it, it has to be because I had people, most notably or memorably my parents, telling me that I could do whatever I set out to do, and telling me that I should. It was on me to follow my passions and my calling. They always encouraged us to find out what we were good at and what we loved, and then go do that thing, and then inspire others to do so too. So I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you to keep asking questions and stay curious. In this social media culture, we're losing the ability to do this, to speak out when something doesn't make sense or sounds wrong to us. And when we stop listening to our inner compass, it leads to us not standing up for what we know is right, and not standing up for the person in the room who may have the same question or feel the same way that we do. If we stay silent, we don't find the other people who have the same concerns as us. And this is how that lie gets spread, that no one agrees with you, which I'm here to tell you isn't true. And I think this problem goes much deeper than just concerns with politics and culture. Our generation has seen a spike in depression and suicide. And a study by the American Psychological Association found that rates of depressive episodes increased 52% among adolescents from 2005 to 2017. And this is a tragedy, and it's a tragedy of our generation. And I think it's something that we need to pay attention to. While there are lots of reasons for this, and we can theorize and speculate all day, I think an undeniable truth is that people feel alone. And they feel alone in their ideas, feel attacked for asking their questions, and for disagreeing with the louder voices of the culture. As young people, it's important to develop our opinions about life and major topics. If we aren't given the space to do this in an open setting, then this can lead to an increase in anxiety and fear of ever speaking out against cultural norms. So we need to talk to one another, and we need to listen to each other and encourage one another, even if we don't agree with everybody's points of view. Because the truth is, you can't please everybody, especially as a leader. We all know this. So decide whose opinion matters to you and live with the intentionality of that purpose. This may be the opinion of your family, of God, of your spouse, your mentors, your friends you look up to, or might be someone that you haven't even met yet. So the ultimate goal should be to be able to answer that call in our lives and do this without bending to the pressure of those around us. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't have people in your life who can speak truth into it. who can lift you up and encourage you and let you know what they really think. We live in a time, we're part of a generation, I think, that kind of celebrates letting ourselves off the hook. But I don't think it's wrong to insist that we hold ourselves to a high standard. And we should have people in our lives who are going to do this for us. And there's a fine line between being too negative and dismissive, but don't let the world tell you to just be content with complacency. It's too easy sometimes to think we're doing the right thing simply by doing or refusing to do what the world tells us to. Each person and each woman has to decide for herself what her goals are and then go do that thing. So cut out the parts of your life that have you wasting time or that you're just doing because you think they're what you're supposed to do. Your life is too important, and your calling is too vital to just be ignored. We have to start by standing out amongst our own generation, but doing so in a respectful way that makes people feel they aren't alone. When we make room for asking our questions, we let others do so too. And when we do this with kindness and gentleness, we make an impact that lasts longer than one debate or conversation. We help people ask their own questions, and we create an opportunity to lessen that despair and loneliness that kind of seems to have invaded our generation. So go ahead and ask the questions that you have, and don't let anyone tell you you can't have these concerns and differing opinions. Find your people and lead them well, but do not do so lightly and naively. Know that leadership comes at a cost, but that price is worth the knowledge that you did all you could to ensure that others don't feel so alone. Each one of us is able to lead, and that means that we have a responsibility to do so, especially when faced with a culture that at times seems to oppose us. We have a responsibility to stand out amongst our institutions, whether that's work, community, or school. It's not just about us anymore. It's not about you in your classroom or your workplace. It's about the people who are watching and who are learning from your ability to unashamedly and courageously step out and lead them, even if sometimes you have to do it alone. Remember that being set apart does not mean you're by yourself. It means that you have an opportunity to be a source of hope for others. And at times, it may feel like you're out there in front on your own with no one else in sight. But the other great thing about being a leader is that you only have to glance back to see the people that you inspired to take up their cause, that will catch you when you stumble, and who will run with perseverance that race marked out for you, but they'll do it together. Thank you. Cool, so I think we can have a couple minutes for questions.
Down your center.
Hi, Charlotte.
Hi.
I want to thank you so much for being here. I think you are fabulous. And we are actually, I think, kind of around the same age. A little bit about me. My name is Emily, and I'm a 25-year-old college professor at Texas State University. I teach freshman English. And I guess my question is to you is what advice do you have for a conservative Catholic woman with traditional values kind of navigating in a department where they are against all of that? And I feel like like my students need me, and I'm kind of a voice of reason amongst like all of this toxic anti-American rhetoric that they're being fed.
Yeah.
So what advice do you have for me to kind of keep my spirits up?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. And I think that, honestly, I mean, that just reminds me a lot of just when I was starting to write this speech, just thinking about, like, what does it actually feel like to be a leader? And it's really hard, and, like, it kind of stinks sometimes. I think that my advice is to keep doing it and hold fast to those values and how you feel led and called to encourage those students, because it is making an impact. And I think, too, is finding that community that's gonna lift you up, even if it's not in your school. It's like people here, I'm sure you've already met, that are gonna support you and encourage you. I go to Harvard Divinity School, and so a lot of people ask me about that a lot because it's a pretty liberal environment. And I have a lot of friends there and a lot of liberal friends. And I also found it really important for me to also have a community that, shared my, religious beliefs and my values as well, within and outside of that, because I think that they are going to be the people that are championing you, and that you're going to be able to like text and reach out to and just be like, help me out here. And they're going to be thinking about you and praying for you. So, you're welcome. Thank you.
Question on your left.
Hi, I'm Olivia Brown, and my question for you is, I am soon going to be joining as a field director in the 2020 Trump campaign. What changed most when you joined the campaign in your life, and how did you stay grounded as you joined your father on the campaign trail?
That's a great question, thanks. I think that what changed most was probably the security, like in a very technical sense, just the lack of privacy. And that literally happens kind of overnight, that Secret Service comes in, they're here somewhere. They come in and they'll just kind of be around like all the time. So that was a big change. I think another change though was the reaction I got from people that I was really close friends with, that really had a hard time with my dad joining that ticket. That was difficult for me, to kind of find out who your friends are, frankly. But I think that, you ask about staying grounded. I think that my family, we just stayed very close that whole time, and we stayed in very close contact. I talk about this in my book, that we talk about our family as a circle, and that you're kind of, once you're in the circle, you're in. And so that during that time, my brother was engaged, and so his fiance was kind of like also in our circle. And I think she had a cool perspective to kind of see how just close we kept. And, we weren't perfect. There were times that, we didn't get along super well during that time. We were very stressed out. And so, but you're still close to each other, you're still talking to each other. And I think that helped us just maintain our relationships with one another, no matter if we won or lost at the end. So, thanks, Olivia.
Hi there. Hi. Okay, so I'm currently pursuing a doctorate of counseling in Liberty University.
Sweet.
And I was especially interested in your statistics concerning suicide and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So in our society, we have this interesting push towards individualism and exploring yourself in a very personal context as opposed to like a collective. So you were speaking about us being leaders and alone, but also being part of a collective.
Mm-hmm.
What is your suggestion for bridging that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that being a leader, to me, by definition, sets you apart. But I think that the danger of thinking that way is to think that you're by yourself, right? So I think that finding other people who are also leading that's part of your collective group. Because, all of you guys here, want to be leaders and want to learn about that and want to learn how to lead. And being a leader doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be at the forefront or at the person in charge. People throughout whole, typical workplace staff are all leading other people all the time. And so, yeah, I think that just maintaining that mindset of when you're leading and when you're doing it well and you're being a good example to other people, you have those people around you, so you're not alone, and you're going to be able to encourage one another because you're all, at the end of the day, on the same team. Yeah. That answers your question. Thanks.
Question on your left.
Hi there, my name's Kimberly. I'm from Florida. I live in Broward County, so it's super liberal. Yeah. My dad's a Border Patrol agent. He's been for a while. He's actually about to retire. But so I face a lot of criticism from friends and people at school for what my dad does. And it's something I back fully, and I'm super proud of him, and I'm so glad my dad chose to serve our country. But how do you deal with criticism of your family?
Yeah, well, first, just thank him for his service and your family. Yeah, you know, I think for me, what I kind of learned from my dad and my mom was that growing up in a political family, you have to kind of be used to public criticism, but that doesn't mean that it's easier, you know? I mean, it's still my dad that people are talking about, so it's hard, and I'm always gonna take it personally. But I think that when I've kind of been able to try to separate thinking of him as my dad and thinking of him as, you know, representative of a set of values or representative of people who elected him, that helps me because my dad would always tell us when we would see protests and people would like put signs outside our house when he was governor and like protest outside our house a lot. But my dad always says that's what freedom looks like. And he would always say this. He says that's what freedom looks like, that's what America looks like. And yeah. And he's right. And he's never talked badly about seeing criticism or public protests or anything like that against him, because that means that the system's working. And that means that that's America. America's supposed to work that way. And so I think that at the end of the day, you know, it is difficult, but I've at least tried to think of it as it's not him that they're attacking, you know, they're attacking a set of values, which is okay because you're allowed to not agree with everybody's values in America. So, yeah.
This will be the last question. Hello, my name's Catherine Jacoby, and I was wondering, as someone who would like to potentially in the future work in the film industry, living in LA, do you have any advice for working in that industry as a conservative?
Yeah, that's great. I always wanted to go into the entertainment industry, and I went to school for film and digital cinema studies and screenwriting originally, so that's kind of what drew me to LA. Honestly, I think that there are more conservatives there in the city, at least, than is probably you know, shown in like the media. And I also think that just once you get to know people on a one-on-one level, a lot of those ideas about that they have about you or you have about them just go away. And I didn't really face any you know, a lot of criticism towards me. I think people kind of give you the benefit of the doubt, and I think it's important too to enter into spaces where you might be set apart, you might be the minority voice for a certain set of values, just because it helps you grow, but it helps those people grow too, and they'll be able to, you know, assign a person to conservative values instead of just this list in their mind. Are we good?
we are the United States of America. We are not a globalist society. We're not global citizens. We're American citizens, and we put America first. So this whole open borders, open society nonsense is literally attacking the sovereignty of our nation. So stick to your guns.
What is up, you guys? This is actually a really special event for me. I know this time last year, I was sitting up front, fangirling over Tommy Lahren and Candace Owens, and I remember Tommy was like, how many of you people want to be on stage like me? So real quick, I'm gonna do the same thing Tommy did. How many people want to be on stage this time next year? Turning Point, take notes. All these people, I was exactly where you guys were, and this event is one of my favorites. So I'm so glad to come talk to you guys today about something that is very controversial right now, abortion. I would like to start out by saying that my pro-life journey, I did not always start out as a pro-life advocate. It's not that I agreed with killing babies, it's that from my viewpoint at this point in time, I did not think that the government should really get involved in telling women what they should do. However, God, I think, had something different in store for me, and it was when I became a senior in college that I decided to take a developmental biology course. Now, I'm walking in thinking that this is going to be like every other science course I've ever taken in my life in college, which was extremely boring and monotonous. And yet by the way, are there any STEM majors in here? You guys are my people. So I'm sitting there in this class, and my professor, who was known for discovering this like single form of snail, specifically known to the state of Florida, so you can imagine taking his class and talking about human life was completely boring. I'm sitting there, and he's saying, okay, we went out and got 60 chickens, and we're going to observe the developmental process of these chickens. And I know you guys are probably like, wait, she's talking on abortion. Why is she talking about these chickens? And why is there a chicken on the screen? I'll get to that in a second. So I'm sitting there, and I'm going through this process, and he says, okay, look, we're going to open up this fertilized chicken embryo, and I'm going to give you this scalpel here, and I want you to cut off a developing bud in this chicken. And I'm thinking, oh my God, why would I do that? But I'm sitting there with my dissection microscope, and as I open it up and I'm looking at this beating heart, I started thinking about abortion. And to me, I'll get to this in a second, but I had never really seen the science behind it. And I think that it's really interesting that right now you have an entire political agenda that will push global warming in the name of science, but they won't acknowledge the scientific facts about what constitutes life. You cannot, if you're using science, pick and choose what science you want to choose from in the name of your agenda. So I'm sitting there, and as I'm going through and I'm essentially cutting off this developing limb of this embryo, I see it shake. I felt completely awful about it. And, I passed my exams, go through, take my finals, and at the end of the course, my professor goes, okay, well, we're just gonna toss these chicken embryos out. And I'm thinking, oh my God, they're fertilized. I'm not gonna let this happen. So what I end up doing is I take home all 60 chicken eggs. My husband at the time, mind you, was in Mosul, right? And so he's calling me, he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, nothing. We lived at a townhome. I'm talking like a 2-bedroom, 2.5-bathroom townhome, no backyard, Florida. And I'm sitting there with incubators hand rotating these eggs, and I don't know when they're gonna hatch. I just know that I ran dissections on them, and I had all these chickens left. Well, what ended up happening is I ended up with 60 chickens. And so I got on my Snapchat on my Instagram, and I put a cute Snapchat filter, and I gave them all away to local farmers, but I realized something. I felt awful about these chicken eggs. Imagine a human being. Come to find out later on that my husband, this incredible man who fought multiple combat tours overseas, thank you. This is actually him when he had gotten shot and was coming back at Walter Reed, and him while he's deployed in Mosul. My husband is that 0.003% that was conceived in rape. No human being deserves to be a choice, and we as women absolutely need to take a stand against other women that choose to inform our younger generation that human beings are a choice and that it's a feminine right. It's not. Being a feminist does not mean you encourage the slaughter of infants, and that's what's happening now. Sorry, I get very emotional on this topic. I feel like every time I'm on stage, I get emotional with you guys. I'm always like crying about something. So to reference the Bible, and I think this is really important, is that I am a Christian and I am unapologetically pro-life because of these incidents. But aside from that, when you look at the Bible, and then I'll kind of transcend into why you need to communicate with these people on the other side, especially with these arguments, because I know, how many of you have gone into a pro-life debate online? Okay. I'll give you guys tips and tricks in a second. Proverbs 31:8 says, "Speak for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute." We absolutely need to start speaking out against this, and we need to start using the scientific evidence, because many people, and I'm not saying all, but many, who are on the left and who are for pro-choice do not believe in God, because I do not think that you can believe in God and be for the pro-abortion agenda. So with that being said, yes, I have gotten called horrendous things online, like I'm sure all of you have, because I am pro-life. I know that people have brought up the instances of people who are getting rape babies and people who are unfortunately conceived in situations that to us are not normal, but it does not mean that we still need to weigh into that conversation. I believe that regardless of the situations in which you're conceived, I don't think that it is our decision to pretend that we're God. We're not. Now, along with that, I think that one important thing is to be addressed. So Alabama passed this amazing law that a lot of people don't know actually decriminalized abortion for the woman, but it actually helped the medical professions or professionals say, hey, look, we're not going to perform these abortions because it goes against the oath that we take, right? But then Alabama comes again with another law that they just passed, and I posted this, and I'm reading this in my car, and I'm like, hell yeah, Alabama, for chemical castration of men who molest children. Which, gentlemen, I'm sorry if you guys are uncomfortable about this, but I think that that needs to be nationwide, because right now, currently, you have about 8 years is the average sentence for someone who's committed rape. I think that to go along with these laws that we're passing, because I do believe that the reason why Roe v. Wade needs to be repealed is because the power should always be invested in the people of this state, not the federal government. That is a friendly reminder that we are a constitutional republic and not just a democracy like so many people think. Thank you. But to go along with that, we need laws that if we are going to be passing these laws to make abortion essentially illegal in these states, we need to make sure that we are coming down on people that are committing these sexual crimes against women and children, and even men as well, to ensure that these women are protected long term. And I think an important takeaway for all of this is that on average, if you have an 8-year rape sentence for someone that commits one of these crimes, why is it that people get less time for a crime, basically of sexual assault, but you can go ahead and buy drugs, and those drug dealers are given harsher offenses? People ask for drugs. People don't ask to be raped. And I think that that's an important thing to remember in all of this, is that these laws go hand in hand, and that we are all essentially ambassadors to the younger generation, especially as women. Men, I appreciate your support in the pro-life debate, but it's going to take women to make that change. And just remember, don't undersell yourself. It only took 300 Spartans to save essentially the nation, right? The Spartan nation against the Persians. It only took 3% of the colonists at the time of the American Revolution to tell Britain to go, to go kick rocks. And I do believe with the story of Queen Esther that it only takes one woman to follow out with God's plan to change the fate of an entire nation. Be that Esther, know when to take a stand, and fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. Thank you. So I gave you guys a little bit of extra time here, so I will be taking questions. So she's going to run around with the microphone and take the questions. Also, I hope you guys are having a good Young Women's. This is definitely bigger than the last one, so it's incredible to see y'all here.
First of all, I just want to say thank you. You're the first Hispanic conservative that I've ever seen and inspired me to talk about conservative
Thank you.
issues. My mother is a refugee from El Salvador. She escaped socialism to come to this country, and my father is incarcerated for human trafficking across the border.
Amazing.
And I think that it's definitely important for Hispanics to talk about immigration, and especially conservatives, because it's so not talked about. It doesn't matter if my father committed any other crime. A crime is a crime. I think that a lot of people are playing victim, and I just wanted to say, what would you say, would you deem certain locations not appropriate to speak about this? Because usually I talk to all of my family members who are very liberal about how legal immigration is great for this country. Our First Lady is a legal immigrant, but illegal immigration should not be tolerated in any country. In my mother's country, they will shoot you if you are illegal. How is it inhumane to just simply detain these people and want to vet people who are coming into this country?
I think that you need to be talking on illegal immigration every single chance that you get, whether or not it's comfortable in the situation for your family. You are educating people. I also think that there's a way to do it, though, okay? You guys need to make sure that you have the facts. I think that a lot of people are unaware of the human trafficking aspect, which is why I think so many of, myself, so many of the activists that are with Bienvenido have worked so hard to get that messaging out there to really inform. So to answer your question, don't be afraid. Always speak up. And, I applaud you for speaking out to your family, because I know that that can be hard. And I know I've personally been disowned by my family, or some of them at least, for being conservative and openly Hispanic, like I'm supposed to hide that or something. But I have people like you, and I have friends, and I have this amazing community that I found that supports me. And I will say this, we will change the face of the nation.
On your left.
Hi, I'm Kara Howie, and I would first like to thank you for your service and your husband's service.
Thank you.
I was wondering how you felt about when the mother is in medical danger when she's pregnant, and how you handle those situations when debating.
Are you talking about whether I think abortion should be legal at that point?
Yeah,
I think that, so here's the thing about that. A lot of these pregnancies that actually go to full term when that instance occurs, if they haven't already self-terminated naturally because of the mutations that occur, I think that that's one of those decisions that if you have a child, I still don't believe that someone should go through with that. And I say that because medicine can be wrong. Science can be, in some instances, wrong. And I know people, in fact, Los Gatos Bros are not here right now, but they were told, their parents were told that they were both going to be severely retarded in Down syndrome. And they still chose to go through and have them, and now they have two beautiful boys. And I think that when you put yourself in those situations, you talk about the hypothetical, I still don't agree with it, because the left, people that are passing this legislation, use that loophole to really say, okay, well, guess what? We can go forward with these full-term abortions, and that's not right.
Hi, I'm a huge fan. So you mentioned, I watch videos of you, and you mentioned how Hispanics are naturally conservative, we're pro-life and everything. And I live in a place where there's a lot of Hispanics. There's also a lot of illegal immigration. And I feel like one thing that is really conflicting is that a lot of people are very, very conservative, but the only thing they don't like about the conservative movement is how much we are against illegal immigration. And I like some friends that I have, they're very conservative, but they wouldn't call themselves conservative just for the fact that their parents are illegal. So how would you go about that?
So she's absolutely correct. This is something that, again, is important with messaging and how your message comes across when you are talking on this topic. The problem is only for the last 2 years have they really targeted and made this a debate. You had Democrats and Republicans, both sides, supporting the United States stance on national security and securing the southern border. It was not until President Trump took office that they really decided to then again say, oh, well, we care about illegals, and really put a camera down at the border when they themselves were encouraging these caravans, encouraging these cartels, encouraging the sex trafficking, and turning their back on the rape and torture and exploitation of thousands of women. So when you are talking on this, I think, first of all, when you do say it, don't really use that term. Talk about what's happened. Don't use the term illegal, and I hate to say that, but when you're doing the outreach, what ends up happening is people shut down and they won't listen to your messaging. So what I do is I talk about the trafficking. I talk about the fact that when people come here the wrong way, that they will never truly have the chance at attaining the American dream, and that is absolutely true. If you love and care about your family, you want them to come the correct way, and what we need to do as conservatives, first and foremost, before any party, is work together for comprehensive immigration reform, because 3 times there's been solutions that would help thousands of people, not only here in the United States, but in Mexico and South America, and it was denied all 3 times. And why was it denied? It was because they hated a president, not because they cared about the people.
Hi, my name's Emily. I'm from Los Angeles, not the easiest place to be a conservative. Also, thank you so much for all that you do for us women. But I have a question. So, considering mine and your stance on abortion, what do you think of the death penalty? Because do you think that they should be killed because they committed horrendous crimes, or they're still a person and they shouldn't deserve to die?
I'm gonna probably go against what a lot of conservatives say that are pro-life. I believe that you absolutely deserve the death penalty if you've done certain things that you 100% can prove through forensics and through DNA analysis and evidence. I think that the problem is that society thinks that you can rehabilitate people that are habitual offenders with rape and murder. I do not believe that, and I definitely stand with Alabama for the chemical castration thing. I think we need a zero tolerance policy on all these things.
Hi. First off, I've never heard of you before, but you're like so incredibly amazing, and you're.
Thank you. I like her. You want to hang out later?
I have a question. I think I'm quite a bit different from a lot of young women here, and I so respect how many young women here are interested in becoming very involved in politics and becoming our future leaders. Personally, I'm more interested in going into the sciences. I love science, but are there things that you think, you mentioned how much that biology course changed your view on pro-life issues. Are there ways that people going into the sciences, not looking to be involved like the main point of their life being politics, but working in the sciences and still make a huge impact for the pro-life, for our conservative values through science?
Absolutely. In fact, I think one of the things that people have always kind of given me feedback on is the fact that I'm able to break it down in a way that they can easily digest it. People don't, and I'm sorry, but I remember multiple times during my biology courses falling asleep reading some of these words that were like, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I think that if you're able to put it in a way that people can easily digest it, that's a huge thing. And then also to bring that knowledge to the states so that they can decide, I think that that's really important, because ever since Roe v. Wade, there's been way more developments in the sciences that they're choosing not to acknowledge because it doesn't go along with their agenda. So I do support, the overturn of Roe v. Wade for that reason. And I appreciate you going into science because STEM is where it's at. Sorry guys, hopefully we'll go there in a second.
Over here. Hi, I just wanted to say a big thank you for coming here and speaking to all of us. It's an honor to listen to you speak. I have a question for you. I'm sorry, it's another abortion question, but I was reading a article about a video that Tomi Lahren did where she went completely against the conservative standpoint and said if we believe in small government and we want them out of our guns, we want them out of our bodies as well. So how would you kind of combat that point as a conservative, speaking to another conservative, trying to keep government small?
I will say that when I heard Tomi Lahren address this question, because someone asked her about it at the last Young Women's Leadership Summit, she said that she does not support abortion in the sense that she does not support the killing of babies, but exactly like you said, she does not support the government interfering. But I would say this, the government is interfering when the damn states cannot decide for themselves.
This is going to be the last question.
Sorry, guys.
Okay, as a Hispanic, I was
wondering why you think that, well, for people who came here legally and like really worked to get their citizenship, why don't you think that they're not speaking up as much as they should to the people who are coming here illegally and kind of being just kind of a slap in the face to the people who did come here the right way?
I think that there are people speaking up. The problem is they're not being given a platform. I think you have people that were also brought here illegally, like Eladio, who has been an advocate because we talk about the correlated issues. What happens, though, especially in politics, especially with bullying, and that is exactly what it is. This is liberal bullying because we don't agree with the BS agenda that they're pushing down our throats, like everything else they do. The problem is that when you have people that are silenced on social media, and they are silenced, when you have people that are forced into not talking because they're afraid of what might happen and the repercussions of them wearing a red hat, that is when you guys as leaders need to really dig deep and say, I'm not gonna deal with this. This is what I believe, these are my values, and I will no longer be a victim of their harassment because I believe in God, I believe in guns, I believe in controlling my country, and I believe in life. Thank you all.
When you're a black person and you get these messages from Democrats, it says that you are a victim. And for me, I got so tired of it and I got sick of that message that I needed them.
What's going on, YBLS? YWLS, excuse me. Now, the reason that I am here is to elevate conservative women. And the first conservative woman that I want to elevate is the woman that just walked off the stage right there. Let me tell you something about Anna Paulina, all right? She didn't speak a lot about the work that she does to stop women being trafficked at the border. She didn't speak a lot about the work that she does to help protect and secure our border. She didn't talk a lot about the work that she does as a conservative Latina woman to stand up and speak out against what is going on at our border, but I'm gonna speak that into existence for her. So please join me in giving her a round of applause, please, please. Now, when they asked me to come to speak at YWLS, I was a little bit confused, right? Because I'm not a young conservative woman. I'm America's favorite black gay Republican. And thank you. And so the question to me was, I thought that I was just gonna go up, come do some social media for everybody, take photos and do all that stuff. And they said, no, Rob, you should really speak. You should really speak because I really think that they want to hear your message. And so I started thinking about what are the ways and what are the things that I have in common with all of these bold, beautiful, young, conservative women in this room, right? So we saw a little bit about what I've gone through over the past year when I quote unquote came out as conservative, right? So I came out as conservative about a year ago. And when I came out as conservative, not only was I coming out as a black conservative, I was also coming out as a gay conservative, right? So I'm literally trying to shatter the narrative of these two quote-unquote victim groups that I'm supposed to be a part of. And when I came out as conservative, I got a lot of stuff from the black community. I got a lot of, you're Uncle Tom, you're this, you're that, blah, blah, blah. I got a lot of stuff even more from the gay community. And if you follow my social media, I've been battling the gay community for Pride Month this summer because I need to let them know that I'm a part of that community as well. And so when I think about what I have in common with all of the young conservative women in this room is, let me ask you this, raise your hand if anybody has ever told any of you on social media or in real life or wherever that you weren't a real woman because you're conservative. That's a lot of hands. And that is what I have in common with every single person in this room, because we all know the struggle of what it is like to be open and honest about your conservatism and open and honest about your values in a world that doesn't seem to respect them. In a world that wants to tell you that your values, the things that you hold dear, whether it is being pro-life, whether it is being for a strong border, whether it is going against the leftist narrative and saying, no, I'm going to stand up for America because I love America and I live in America, and that is not a bad thing, and I'm not going to make it a bad thing, right? So when you stand up for all of these things, you become a target. People tell you that you're not real women. I had a conservative Latino woman come up to me yesterday in the hall, and it was really interesting for me because sometimes when you do a lot of things on social media and you're doing the Fox News and you're traveling, all that stuff, you sometimes don't comprehend how strong the influence and the impact that you're having on people is. Which is why events like this are so amazing, which is why I get so much energy from these events, because you all come up to me and you say that this has affected me because I go through this as well. And this young lady, and I forget what her name is, but she just came up to me and she was so appreciative of everything that I was doing on social media. And then I realized that I had that connection with her because we both know what it is like to be ostracized for our beliefs. But then again, like Charlie says, like Candace says, we're not victims in here, right? There are no victims in this room. You're not victims because you're young women. You're not victims because you're conservatives. You're not victims because there are young women of color in this room. And so that is where we differ from the left. And the message that I have to give you today is that there are people in this room who want to be Anna Paulina and want to be Candace Owens. And that is amazing because, man, if there are two women in America right now who are to be emulated more than the two of them, I don't really know who they are, right? So that is okay. And if that is your goal, or if your goal is to be in entertainment, or if your goal is to be a lawyer, an entrepreneur, or a business person, or whatever, when you are out and open and honest about your conservative beliefs, about who you are as somebody that has love for the country, about who you are as somebody that may believe in pro-life, as who you are, you're going to get pushback. And I'm not here to tell you that this is going to be easy. And I'm not going to tell you that it's always fantastic and glamorous or anything like that. Because whether you're doing social media or whether you want to be a CEO or whatever, and you want to be open and honest about your conservative beliefs, you are going to get pushback. And what we are here to do at the Young Women's Leadership Summit is to give all of you young ladies the tools to combat this, right? Because it's not easy. And when you look at what Candace Owens has gone through, and when you look at what Anna Paulina has gone through, and when you look at Dana Lesh, I believe, spoke yesterday, and you look at what she has gone through as somebody who is such a fierce, strong advocate for women and their gun rights, for what she has went through, I hope that that gives all of you strength, right? Now, we've been talking a lot about abortion at this conference. We've been talking a lot about the pro-life movement. And there's a strain of the hardcore leftist in me that I'm trying to get rid of that says that, oh, well, since I'm a man, I can't speak about these issues. And I won't go into it. But what I will say is this. We are having a conversation about abortion and a conversation about the pro-life movement that I have not seen in my lifetime. And the conversation is very interesting to me, and I will tell you there are a couple of things that have started to shift my view for this. Live Action is a group, I believe that it is a pro, right, so you guys know Live Action, right? So I came across a tweet from Live Action on Twitter. They tweeted a video, it was horrifying to me as a black person, and I think that you guys may know the video that I'm talking about. A person called in and said, I want to give a donation to Planned Parenthood, but I want to make sure that this donation is specifically used to abort black babies. It's awful, and it's a real thing, and I may have retweeted it a couple days ago. And so I watched this video, and this video is 2 minutes long, and it just made me think so seriously about Planned Parenthood and about the conversation that we have when it comes to abortion, and about this new conversation that we're having about pro-life, right? And I'm very ginger when I kind of wade into these topics because you know that I'm neither making any babies nor raising any babies right now. But I think it's important. And another thing, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, in a ruling that he made a couple of days ago, or a couple of weeks back, he talked about the path towards eugenics, right? Because we all know that Planned Parenthood was started by a white supremacist. And it was started by a woman who wanted to exterminate black babies like weeds. You know, that's what she said. And this was another thing that I didn't realize until about the past year and a half. And for me, as a gay man in this world, and as somebody whose parents, whose mother, my mother, didn't come to terms with the fact that I am gay for a really long time, and we're good now, but that was a conversation that lasted for a really long time. And I think that as a gay man, well, if we're moving into people deciding what qualities that they do or do not want from their children, what happens when we are allowed to, we see like maybe a gay gene or something like that, and that parent decides that they don't want to have a gay kid? So what does that mean to me? What would that mean if we got to that point? And my mother was given that option as well, and I thank God that she was not. And the final point that I want to make about the pro-life and the abortion movement is that it's about the culture. And I saw something that was so crazy. I saw Miley Cyrus licking a cake that says abortion is healthcare, right? And so when I think about these things, and what I think about what the culture is telling us, and what the culture is telling us about abortion, and what the culture is telling us about our bodies, I believe that it is very important for every single person in this room, especially you young women, to fight for the culture, fight to be a part of the culture. Don't think that your path to success needs to be running around here and talking about hardcore politics all the time. When I listen to some of the young ladies asking Charlotte Pence questions about Charlotte Pence being in the entertainment industry and them saying that they were interested in being in the entertainment industry as well, I say, go for the culture. Come into the entertainment industry and bring your values to that industry, because that industry needs the values of every person in this room. That is absolutely true. That is absolutely true that this culture needs your values, because this culture is going to a place where I think we need to rein it back in. As a gay man, I gotta rein my community back in because they got 7-year-old drag queens running around. Then that's a real thing, seriously. And I'm the crazy one when I say that, hey guys, you know, maybe this isn't working. Oh, you know, I'm a hater, I'm this, I'm that, whatever. And that's fine. Because when I take those hits, I know that I'm taking them because I'm making a stand for the culture. And that stand is what I want every single one of you to be able to take and to be able to bring into your lives. Whether you're on college campuses, or whether you're in your internships, or whether you're working for Turning Point USA, or whether you go into the office to be a CEO, to do whatever you're doing in entertainment, because it is so important right now that we start coming for the culture. And I see a lot of amazing young ladies in this room that need to come for the culture, that need to bring your values to the culture. And you need to stand up and tell people that just because you have conservative values does not mean that you can't be a part of the women's movement or the women's march or anything that is supposed to empower women. You cannot let these people tell you that you can't be about empowering your community just because you're conservative. It's garbage. And I really want to have some time for Q&A. That is my message. I just want to close out this part by saying we got a lot of questions. And I just want to close this part out by saying that every single young lady that I see in this room inspires me. Please come up to me. Please tweet. Please Instagram. Please do all of these things, because every single person in this room is the reason that the Anna Paulinas and the Candace Owens and the Dana Leshes and the Charlotte Pences and all of these people do the work that they do. It is to empower you guys. And I thank all of you for helping make me a small part of this. Thank you all so much. Thank you. Thank you.
That are gay, and they have a lot of conservative viewpoints, but they're really afraid to speak up. And I want to help them as much as I can, but I don't necessarily know how. And I was wondering if you have any advice.
You know, look, If anybody, if you follow my social media, I try not to battle people too much. I think it's destructive, but I've been doing a lot of Pride Month battling on the social media, which I have to get away from. But any gay conservatives that are kind of like afraid to stand up and come out, I say that be prepared to take the hits, and you have to make a stand, right? So there is a point in this community right now where I am ostracized. I am a pariah, okay? I don't get invited to the events. I don't go anywhere. It's like everybody knows who I am, but they don't want to kind of like acknowledge my existence, because I have to say that child drag queens are wrong, dude. Like, this stuff is wrong. And my advice to your gay conservative friend is that you have to be prepared to be unpopular. You have to embrace being unpopular, because what is popular is not always what's right. And everybody knows that in this room.
On your left.
Yes.
So recently I took over a leadership position on my campus that was for many years held by men. And I'm struggling with the whole identity thing, trying to be proud of the fact that, you know, I'm the first woman Greek president in a very long line.
Yeah.
And at the same time, not allowing my platform to be used for movements that I do not agree with.
There is a way to, and this is like the identity politics conversation, because I get a lot of trolls on Twitter like, well, you hate identity politics, but you're America's favorite black gay Republican. Like, how does that work? So here's the thing. You are a woman. That is who you are. I'm a gay black man. That is who I am. And when you're breaking barriers like this, don't let anybody make you feel ashamed of breaking the barrier that you're breaking right now, because that is important. It is important that you're out there. But I think that you're in a very strange position, because when women are in positions of power nowadays, they're expected to toe the leftist line. And my advice to you is to use a leftist term, lean in. I actually like that term. I like that. We can co-opt that. To lean into what it is that you're doing right now, because what you are doing is breaking boundaries, all right? And so it's not about ignoring the fact that you are who you are. It's about not letting who you are be the entire platform and to talk about other issues. You are the first woman president in that organization, and that's amazing. But that doesn't mean that you have to be out here, you know, throwing abortion praise or whatever it is that they do on the left, you know what I mean? So you need to be able to own that and use it, but not fall too much into the kind of like that leftist trap. Hey.
Hi, my name is Casey. I'm a philosophy major at Louisiana State University. And one of the first things we learn in philosophy is how to argue and how to have healthy discussions about our disagreements. And so I want to define a term real quick. So what I mean by healthy discussions of our disagreements, I mean a discussion that is productive and one where the participants involved are willing to not only teach, but also to learn. So an open-minded discussion. I think personally that having healthy discussions about our disagreements is not only good, but it is necessary to solve problems. So I think that the left has demonized the idea that it is okay and necessary to have these discussions about our disagreements. How do we as young women or young men influence or persuade our peers to have healthy discussions, persuade them that it is not only okay but necessary?
I think, that's a really good question. I was talking with somebody in the lounge about this yesterday. She was talking to me, the story that she told me was that she was in one of these, sort of like these dialogues about race, quote unquote. And so it's like, you pick the black person and the Latina and everybody else and the white people, and then we're supposed to have this conversation about race. And then she said what ended up happening was the black woman and the Latina ended up just like arguing with each other about who was the most oppressed. And so I would say that is not the way to have those conversations. I fundamentally believe that every one of us, we have more in common than I think we think right now. And I think that a lot of the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing is that we have to get to a point as a country, we have to realize that, we can't, number one, lose our minds every time there's a Republican president, but number two, start talking to each other about these issues. I think that the healthiest way to encourage people that dissent is good is to, number one, find people who are really interested in having real conversations. Because you will find there's a difference between leftists and liberals. Some of my best friends are liberals. My best friend in the world is practically a socialist. God bless his heart. Yeah, we have a lot of conversations about that. But the most important thing that you can do is to find the people that are really ready and willing to have honest conversations. And having honest conversations about race or the border or anything like that, it's not about those people that can't wait to come up and shut you down and say that you can't have an opinion on something because you're white, or you can't have an opinion on something because you're straight, or you're not, or whatever it is. So the first thing, especially as a philosophy major, you need to find the people that are open and willing to have those conversations and to lack, I don't want to say safe space because that's so tired, but you guys need to know that whatever the conversation you're going to have, it's real, and try to build that place where it is comfortable enough. Because if you get a bunch of leftists that are just like playing oppression Olympics, nothing's ever going to get done. Trust me on that.
So a few years back, my brother came out as gay, and him and my mom immediately turned to the left, and they were like raised Republicans, all that stuff. And then when I started becoming more in depth with like how Republican and conservative I was, they immediately said I was homophobic, I wasn't like looking out for his best interests, and I was just wondering, how do you, like, because he's my best friend, how do you like change that message and that idea that like Republicans and conservatives don't
it's literally, when you boil somebody's entire mission down, and it's at the core of like what your mission is, and for me, my mission is literally gays and lesbians don't have to be Democrats, right? And that's a huge part, a big part of my platform, and this is what I'm trying to tell my community, because they have been so co-opted by this leftist idea that anybody that's not on the left hates you, wants to kill you, wants to put you in concentration camps or whatever, just because you're gay. And I'm like, no, I think you have America confused with Iran. Okay, first of all. But I think that with your brother and with your mom, what you really have to do is, and I don't even want to say point them to somebody like me, there's a lot of gay and lesbian conservatives out there right now that are kind of like pushing against the leftist agenda. And when you guys were, you said that you were raised Republican, that's a Republican household, sit them down and really talk to them about really just what's going on here. So what is going on with the quote unquote LGBTQIAK++ community right now? And it's serious, because this is what's going on. And so ask your brother and ask your mother, are 7-year-old drag queens, like, do you think that that's a good idea? Do you think that telling preteens that they're transgender and putting them on irreversible medical intervention and therapy for the rest of their lives is a good idea? So you really have to come to it from that perspective. And you also have to tell them that what's going on in the conservative movement right now, and speaking of gays, the president just tweeted in support of Pride Month, which is amazing, which is the first time a Republican president in American history has tweeted in support of Pride Month, right? And Donald Trump is also the first Republican president in American history to enter office. As a matter of fact, the first president in American history to enter office as a supporter of marriage equality, right? It's settled law, all this stuff. So you have to point out the things that are outside of what the leftist agenda is telling your mother and your brother about him being gay. And you have to look at things like that and really point them to people like me, point them to people like Greg Angelo, point them to people like a lot of the gay and lesbians that are coming out, and point them to a lesbian named Julia Beck, who is awesome. And she has been completely ostracized for standing up for women and the rights of women to have their own spaces and their own sports. So really point them to those people. Thanks.
This is going to be the last question.
Okay.
So I'm a pageant girl. I was actually Miss Florida Teen, and
I can tell you're gorgeous.
Pageantry is supposed to be an industry that is about empowering women, building strong women. Well, in recent years, on-stage questions and even panel interview questions have been pertaining to hot button topics President Trump, the Second Amendment, abortion, the Me Too movement. Well, other contestants are almost praised and exalted for expressing their liberal ideas, but whenever I answer with my conservative ideals, I'm almost shamed in silence, and I'm sure other women can relate to that. So do you have any advice or words of encouragement for us?
My advice is to, number one, recognize that you are going to be shamed in silence and use it. Use it. If you get a question like that at your pageants, make sure somebody's filming. Stand up for what you believe in. Put it out on social media, because I'm telling you that you have to take a stand for what you believe in, even if it is unpopular. And for you, you have this platform as a quote-unquote pageant girl, in your words, but you have this platform to be able to make a change, because people are looking to you. They're not only looking to you because you're beautiful, intelligent, and all those different things, but they're going to be looking to you because you are standing up and putting your foot down about what you believe, and never back down from that. And make sure that you're taking every opportunity to build your platform via social media, because then your platform can get even larger, and you can start standing up for your conservative beliefs and what you truly believe to an even larger audience than you may be standing up for right now. Thank you. All right, that's it for me. Thank you all so much. Young Women's Leadership Summit. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
As long as I got my suit and tie, I'ma leave it all on the floor tonight. And you got fixed up to the nines. Let me show you a few.
And now we will begin to change the world, state by state, country by country, to put together what has been broken.
Hello, ladies. Hello. I am so proud to be here. What a gift. Turning Point USA. They just told me that 5 years ago there were only 50 girls in the room, and today it is 1,500. Are you kidding me? This is amazing. Well, what an honor to be here today. Thank you all so much. It is truly a gift, a blessing, just an incredible opportunity to talk to so many of you who truly are changing the world, and that is what I am all about, so I love it. I want to talk about a couple things today, and then we're going to open it up for some fun questions for you. My entire last couple of decades has been really focused on public policy. So I'm going to talk a little bit about prosperity and helping all Americans to a better life, but especially those with the least among us. I'm going to talk about making America great again. I'm going to talk... Woo! I'm going to talk about how all of that intersects. I'm going to talk about how we help those with the least among us. I'm going to talk about how we lift all boats to a better life, about how all of us should have the chance at the American dream, but especially those kids in inner city Detroit or Charlotte or Tampa or Dallas or San Antonio, how America today is doing more for everyone across this country than ever before. So thank you for having me. Opportunity, dignity, and freedom. These are the pillars of the American exceptionalism, and they date to the founding of our great nation. As you all know, our Constitution set out the conditions for prosperity, but our founding fathers left the rest to us. Over the years, the triumph of the American spirit has brought about groundbreaking innovation and, just as importantly, a united nation forged in the fire of patriotism. The rising tides of freedom and free enterprise and individual liberty have lifted all boats, from those with the most among us to those with the least among us. And instead of opting for socialism, the equality in poverty, we Americans have chosen greatness time and time again. In the modern day, the specific policy solutions may have changed a bit since our founding, but the overarching themes are the same as they were when America was born. The promise of America remains. I look out in the audience and I see the modern day George Washington, and I see the modern day Thomas Jefferson, and I see the modern day Alexander Hamilton, and I see the modern day Samuel Adams, and you girls are looking really pretty. I absolutely love it. Our nation is lucky to have all of you, the future leaders of this country, who are standing strong and firm and relentless and persistent for the pillars of liberty. This movement, the conservative movement, the movement for America, has issued a call to the common man and woman, rallying America around a shared conviction that all are indeed created equal, that all should have a chance at the American dream, and that America must always, always, always come first. It is cause for celebration that our conservative ideas, as my boss, the president, likes to say, are winning, and winning big. You know, our government's first responsibility is always to its citizens, but for too long, our leaders of both parties often cavorted around the globe, signing international agreements that earned praise in the mainstream media, but put Americans last. They stood idly by as their destructive policies decimated our middle class and divided our nation. They locked away a generation of African Americans under a regime of mass incarceration codified into law by Bill Clinton. And they turned a blind eye to the opioid crisis that has hollowed out too many communities. Instead of addressing the growing structural issues with our economy and our body politic, these elites just resolve to create more government programs, give more government funding out, increase everyone's taxes, and for what? But what the most vulnerable among us needed was not a hand out, they needed a hand up. In this amazing country, we must leverage every American, from whether the Space Coast in Florida to the Golden Coast of California, from the Williston Basin in North Dakota. Oh, we've got some North Dakotas, to the Permian Basin in West Texas. We face a fierce and global competition that demands nothing less than America at her absolute best. If we are going to continue to be the superpower, the best the world has ever seen, we must continue to leverage our best source in this country, and that's human capital. That's the talent of every single American. I have the extraordinary fortune of working today in the White House for President Donald J. Trump. A man who has no patience for wasted potential. This refusal to accept wasted American potential has been the North Star of the Trump presidency, guiding our administration time and time again to policy victories that not only put America first, but put Americans first. It's interesting to think that President Donald J. Trump assumed the office of the presidency at a moment when the forces of the left had had a long and destructive run from the community heights, the commanding heights of American culture and politics and policy. And he assumed that office specifically because then, just 2.5 years ago, the American people had had enough. You had had enough. We had had enough of self-dealing politicians whose only interest was themselves. We had had enough of the elite class whose false promises hurt everyone, but especially those who needed help the most. We had had enough. America had had enough of a media that condescends and pretends to know best for us when they indeed do not. We had had enough of the thought politicking and the political correctness that had taken over every aspect of American life. And we had had enough of people, Americans losing their health care, not being able to choose where their children could be best educated, and jobs being decimated and decreased day after day. It was enough. So the American people, you elected my boss, President Donald J. Trump. And in those 2.5 years, we have seen the triumph of conservative ideas again and again and again. The triumph of conservative ideas that means a better life for the single mother in Detroit struggling to make ends meet. The triumph of conservative ideas, meaning a better life for the family in Tampa who just wants a chance for their children to go to a school where they can survive. The triumph of conservative ideas for the new college graduate in Milwaukee who will actually have a chance at a decent job and be able to pay down their crushing student loan debt. The triumph of conservative ideas, meaning the single dad in Pittsburgh will have low-cost electricity so he won't have to choose between eating and heating, which so many in Europe do today. The triumph of conservative ideas, meaning the sick child in Phoenix will have access to a doctor and decent health care for her parents and her best needs and will not be faced with bankruptcy because of it. The triumph of conservative ideas has meant the lifting of all boats in this country unlike we've ever seen before. Our commitment to American greatness for all of our nation's citizens is particularly transformative for those with the least among us. Over the last 2.5 years under President Trump, we have seen those results. We have seen a booming economy that includes 5 million jobs created. We have seen decades low unemployment numbers. African Americans, the lowest unemployment on record. Hispanic Americans, the lowest unemployment on record. Asian Americans, the lowest unemployment on record. Americans with disabilities, the lowest unemployment on record. Our veterans, the lowest unemployment on record. Women, the lowest unemployment in 65 years, soon to be the lowest on record. It has been nothing short of astonishing. We have more jobs in this country today. This is the beautiful thing about free markets and capitalism and free enterprise. We have more jobs in this country today than people to fill them. This is an unprecedented time in our country's history. We have 5 million Americans who have moved off of food stamps and into the job market, who can now provide for their family without government assistance. We have, many of you may not have followed this as closely, but for those of you who remember the president promising for every new regulation, we're going to get rid of 2, which to many people sounded stunning. Do you know in year 1, for every new regulation, we got rid of 22. 22 to 1. It's incredible. In year 2, in the second year of the Donald J. Trump presidency, for every new regulation, we got rid of 12. And all of this to help unleash this amazing economy. It's extraordinary. As you all know and may have heard, and I think I saw on the agenda later today, and something that I'm very passionate about, criminal justice reforms under this president that other presidents could not achieve, that will make America safer and reduce recidivism and will afford a real second chance to those Americans who will be reentering society from prison. And that's what this country is about. We will finally secure our borders and regain control over who is entering this country. But at the same time, we will fix this immigration system so those who are coming in are the brightest and the best and the smartest and the most productive to help continue to make this country great. And the list goes on and on and on. And now that we have seen victory after victory of our ideas at the national level, our country is becoming stronger and freer and wealthier and safer and greater than ever before. We want and see and view, and the reason that you are here is because I think you want this too. We want an America in which every city is a landmark and every town is the kind of place that the anyone would be proud to say that they're from, that is the true meaning of prosperity and opportunity and dignity for all, which is what we are all fighting for every day. You know, President Trump, we, the conservatives, you are winning for the American people. The latest chapter in the American story of the best ideas delivering the best results for this beautiful country. When you look at what is happening in this country today, with so many Americans being lifted up because our ideas are carrying the day, I want you all to realize what a difference you make. It is your persistence, it is your passion. The fact that there are 1,500 of you here today in Dallas, Texas, spending 3 days of your precious time to learn more, to figure out how to better fight for this country. It is you that will make the difference, that is the difference between the survival and the death of the American dream. We are truly in a battle for the soul of this country. It is a righteous battle. And I often compare it, and it's not dissimilar from the Battle of 1776. But like I say, you all are the modern day George Washingtons, Thomas Jeffersons, and Alexander Hamiltons. We have the awesome privilege of living through a pivotal moment in American history. But we also bear the solemn responsibility that comes along with this fact of fate. We must live up to the calling of our time and embrace our fellow citizens with the patriotic affection that has made us one nation under God. In closing, I want to just share a little bit of a personal story with you. I know what it's like, as many of you do as well, to be one of those Americans wondering how and where and what it looked like to make it. I remember being a little girl in a little Texas town, population 1,200, about an hour south of here, named Glen Rose, when my mom, I think we have some Glen Rosians here. That's kind of a miracle. Welcome. When my mom gathered my 2 little sisters and me, we were 3 little girls together, and said that our dad wasn't going to be around as much anymore, but we were going to figure it out together, just the 4 of us. I was 8 years old. So my mother did something very Texan and very American. She started a small business. It was a little flower shop on the tiny square of Glen Rose with 1 stoplight then. And that flower shop, that small business, kept us together. It kept us in a home. It kept us in school. And it kept us okay. I remember those days vividly. Every day when I came home from school, working in the flower shop, helping my sweet mom, studying with my books behind the counter, I learned that hard and good work, a refusal to quit, and the love of family and neighbors were the difference between poverty and prosperity. And is that not the American dream we are charged to defend? I urge you to keep battling. I urge you to keep battling for that great promise, an America that works for the least among us, an America that is fit for the biggest dreams, an America in which our minority fellow citizens flourish as never before, an America where forgotten communities rediscover hope, and an America where a little girl growing up in a little town behind a little counter in a little flower shop on a little small Texas square could one day walk the halls of the West Wing and serve a president that is truly making America great again. God bless you all. God bless this extraordinary country, and keep battling, ladies, because it is a righteous and worthy and gallant and awesome fight out there, and we are winning. Thank you. I would love to answer any questions.
Hi there, I'm Catherine Rocket from Boston, and thank you. I'm continuously astounded by how Trump just delivers on all of his promises. However, I have a slight concern about the increasing deficit. Do you know, in 2020, when Donald Trump will win, what will he do to combat the deficit?
Definitely a really, really big issue for this country, and it has been for a long time. What's interesting is before the last president, President Barack Obama, I think the added debt all collectively together was not as much as the debt that was accumulated under 8 years of President Barack Obama. So that sort of puts it into perspective. It certainly is a huge issue. We are continuing to talk about it, continuing to look at it. As the economy does better, we'll have more money moving into the government to help bring that deficit down. But as we continue to cut taxes, it's a balancing act. However, what I would say is that it's really important for your future children's future, for your future grandchildren's future, that we continue to focus on the deficit and bring it back in line where it needs to be. And I have no doubt that this president, with his leadership, will do just that by the time he's finished in 2024. So, thank you.
On your last. Hi, thank you so much for being here. As you probably know, AOC is fighting for the minimum wage to be raised to $15. What is your opinion on that?
So the minimum wage is like anything dealing with socialism and big government, it sounds lovely, right? Everyone should be able to live in big, huge houses, and everyone should have a really awesome job, and everyone should, blah, 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 blah. Everyone should. Here's the problem with it. If you want to see what happens when everyone should, when you want to see what happens when you try to equalize everything, look at Venezuela, look at Cuba, look at Russia, look all around the world where socialism has been tried in the vein of, but we want everyone to have the same benefits that everybody else has. It doesn't work. And the extraordinary thing about American exceptionalism and the founding of our country and what our founding fathers envisioned is we are a nation built on people and self-governance and empowerment. And the free enterprise system has done more to help those at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder than any system ever proven out in the world. So when you look at the minimum wage, thank you. When you look at the minimum wage and you really research it and you really read about it, what you find is it does more to harm the people at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder because it destroys small businesses and small business jobs, which is where most of those men and women get their chance to really try to live the American dream. So to AOC, I say no thank you. We will stick with free enterprise.
This is going to be the last question.
Howdy, I'm from College Station, Texas, and actually I'm going to A&M in the fall. Yes. So I was wondering, was there anything that you learned or took with you from Texas A&M or just college in general that really helped you in the White House?
Oh, did you just bring up the Aggies? Oh, this is such yes. So I went to Texas A&M in 1990. I graduated Glen Rose High School. In 1990, and honestly thought I was going to the end of the world. How many of you are from little bitty towns? Lots of small town kids out there. Well, you can appreciate, I left Glen Rose, population 1,200. I got in my car and drove to the other side of the world, which was actually only 2.5 hours away, but it seemed like forever, to College Station, Texas. I graduated with 39 people in my graduating class from high school. My first day at Texas A&M, there were 350 people in my chemistry class, which was much larger than my entire high school combined. So it was an extraordinary sort of leap of faith. To then have finished there just a few years later as the first female student body president at Texas A&M, I wouldn't normally say that, but I know you all can appreciate it. What I learned there, and I think what all of you who are in college and working your way through is the idea that there is something bigger than ourselves. I fell in love with Texas A&M. I fell in love with the military tradition. I fell in love with America. I fell in love with the patriotism. And when I was there, I realized that I wanted to go make things better. I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't know what kind of career. I thought about ministry. I thought about teaching. I thought about lots of different things. Ultimately realized for me that public policy is where you could really help the most people. I attribute my college time to that. Listen, have fun. I had a really good time in college, but don't waste that experience. Get involved in leadership opportunities, get involved in giving back, get involved in making a difference, and make your time in college, make your college better. I love you all are here, so I'm sure you're doing this. And use the opportunity you have to really spread the gospel, because the fact that you're even here and learning about all this, the gospel of the good Lord, but also the gospel of freedom and liberty. God bless you all. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you all.
This is our turn to shine, conservatives. Guess what? We're winning because we've always come back together.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, yeah, I guess you can. I hear the echo now. Okay, so I am here to thank AOC today. Am I at the wrong event? No, and I'm not just thanking her for helping us re-elect the president in 2020, but I'm also thanking her on a very personal level. I thought that was what my speech was supposed to be about today. I'm thanking her on a very personal level because, do we have any other blondes in the room? You know, life is not easy when you're a blonde chick. You know, you get a little marginalized. People tend to underestimate you. You know, people, will be at an event, my husband's with me, and they'll say, oh, what's your husband speaking on? I'm like, actually, I'm kind of speaking today, things like that. And so you get a little underestimated, but AOC has changed our lives, my blonde friends, because no longer are we ever going to be the brunt of a joke. How much more effective I would have been, but even more importantly than that, you realize that through the vehicle of Turning Point and through the leadership and all the opportunities that it's giving you, you are going to change the world in ways that no American generation of young women has ever been able to do before. Have you contemplated that? And that's you, and that's super exciting. So I want to thank all of you and to thank them for having me here. For those of you who don't know me, I do a little commentary on Fox News. I have a few books that I've written. One of them here today, my newest release called Mad Politics, and I want to talk to you about it. But I also, and I think the most important thing about me, I've been married 29 years to, and you lose a little bit of count after a few of these. I was like, it's our 30th wedding anniversary, honey. What are we going to do this year? He goes, I don't know, because it's not our 30th wedding anniversary. It's actually only our 29th wedding anniversary, so we have a year to think about it. But I also, with this amazing man who's a former senator and a brilliant political mind and strategist, does public affairs at this point in his life, I have 5 amazing children. And as I like to put it, you can clap for them, yes. And I like to put it like this. We have one that we got to pick out by the blessing of adoption that happens to have Down syndrome. So I get really, really irritated when I, for example, go on one of those networks that you might be able to guess the 3-digit or 4-digit or 5-digit letters of, and they call me a racist or a bigot. I left out that my son is also a minority, the same son. And we picked him, So just don't even start with me right there, But we get that all the time. You, through your life, are going to be called things you're not every day. And I used to actually have my phone programmed so that I woke up in the morning and Siri said, good morning, racist, homophobic, sexist, bigot. I got a new phone, and I figured that way I've been called most of the things I'm probably going to be called as the day progresses. And so it was like I could just keep my focus. But one of the things I really do want to point out to you, I think one thing I've seen recently with your age of women, young women, who have such a zeal and such a passion, and you see all these people who, are in the arena, and you want to be in the arena, and we want you in the arena. But I see, how do I say, people getting in their own way a little bit. Not taking the time to build a solid foundation that will actually catapult you to where you want to be in God's timing, right? And with that solid foundation so that you're unshakable. Because that's really what it comes down to, is having a foundation built for yourself in your life that you can do this work and you can take the attacks with that solid foundation and they don't bother you. What makes our president this week? Oh my goodness. Was he not phenomenal? Is he not, could you be any prouder? I mean, first he goes and he makes us superstars on the world stage, because that's what he does. And then he now has Mexico going, oh, what can we do? We'll build the wall. You're just like, wait, what just happened? And I tell you what, I think the next thing that's going to happen is China's going to come here and bow to him. But he makes us proud. But why? Yeah, let's see that, right? Why? What is it about him? And that's really what my whole book is about. And I'm going to talk about that here in just 1 second, I promise. And I'm going to give you a chance to ask questions as well. But I want to talk about, what is his superpower? What is it? Because I really wanted to know that. My background is in psychology, for those of you who don't know. I went to school way too long. Don't do it. I have 3 postgraduate degrees, and it was really because I didn't want to get a real job. And I was good at school, and I wasn't sure I'd be good at life, so I just kept going to school. I really don't prescribe that. But because of that, my passion has always been human behavior, and I like to understand people, and I like to understand what makes somebody tick and what makes greatness, right? What makes Donald Trump able to withstand the attacks that he withstands on a daily basis? And I'll tell you what it is. It's that foundation that I was just telling you about. He is not shakable because he knows who he is. He knows where he's been. He knows he can take something that you and I probably hate. People are always saying, well, when you're on TV, why do you always say nice things about the president? I'm like, because he's awesome. And then they'll say, and I've had producers say this to me on certain networks, they'll say, well, can't you just a little jab now and then? Can you say something critical? I'm like, all right. When he started the tariff thing, I was like, let me say this. I don't like tariffs. But have you ever seen someone so masterfully use tariffs as this president has used tariffs? Brilliant. None of us like war either, do we? So they like to pick these topics and say, oh, these are bad things. Yeah, tariffs are bad. I don't like them. But we were at a desperate point. He had a tool in his tool belt. He knew how to use it. He knew he was a strong enough negotiator to do it. He knew he had enough experience under his belt in very tense situations like this in business, and he knew how to win using a tool that we might not normally be very comfortable with. But we're comfortable with it now, aren't we? We still don't like tariffs, but most of us lean a little libertarian on that issue, but boy, he used it well. That's because he built that foundation. And there's a certain person I'm not gonna mention this person's name, and I actually really admire a lot of the work that she's done. And one of her major funders, but she's endured a lot of scorn in the movement, if you will. And she's done a lot of hard work, does a lot of hard work, and takes a lot of heat, and has made some missteps, and those have been held against her very firmly by us, by our movement. And so one of her major funders pulled me aside, and this funder is a friend of mine, and she said, she's so young. Why is everybody so mean to her? And I said, you know what, I can tell you why. She tried to jump too fast. Most of us, and I've only been in really front and center in politics for 10 years, because for about the first 20 years of my adult life, I spent it helping other people. Building up organizations like Concerned Women for America is one that I was very involved with. Eagle Forum is one, and I was a behind-the-scenes person, right? Still do a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. I had no desire to be front and center until I felt like I didn't have a choice, because I thought Obama was turning us into a socialist country, and that's when I stepped out. That was it. Never before that. And so I just want to encourage you to not make those same missteps. And I don't know if is anybody else talking to you about these missteps that we're starting to see? It's not because these women are bad, right? The ones who are making these missteps. It's because they just want to already be 45 years old and doing what that group of patriots are doing, right? But that's not their calling quite yet. Now, does that mean that there can be no 20-somethings doing great advocacy or playing major administrative roles or being on television or all those things? Of course not. And we have a lot of those people here today. But it does mean that God's timing is something that I want you to trust. Because really, you really want to know why? Because I'm the worst at trusting his timing. So I'm sort of warning you against my own faults here. But I have started to see this a little bit, and the number one question I get, and I've had many of you say this to me today, in the last day, I got in last night, and I've had many of you say this to me, I want to do what you do, how can I do it? And I think, wow, well, first, you've got to get married, and you've got to have 5 children, and you've got to endure the pain of childbirth 4 times, and you might have to have a couple of really painful experiences in your life, because then what happens is you get somewhere, and some crazy, unbridled, regressive leftist attacks you on something, and you know where to go in your tool belt. Just like the president knows where to go because he has that experience. You want to be unshakable before you take that platform where you can be shaken or worse, plucked. Because I don't want to see anyone in this room ever make that mistake. I don't ever want you to be in that place because I know your hearts are good and I know you just want to help. And we all want to help. So my best, foresight on this is, find a mentor. Number one, find a mentor, and then remember that mentorship is reciprocal. and then promote everyone here. I heard Charlie say it last night to a group of people. He said, every time someone tweets once about you, you tweet twice about 2 other people, right? Don't be afraid to share your platform or whatever your platform is if it's not social media. You make sure that you're giving more than you're getting, that you're giving more opportunities to people coming up behind you than the ones that the people ahead of you are giving. Okay, you always make sure of that. And I promise you this, come back to me in 10 years if this doesn't work for you, because I promise you, it absolutely will work for you. I wrote the book Mad Politics because I saw a true cultural crazy, and it concerns me. It's not us. You're the sane ones. I said this on Sean Hannity's show. I guess we don't have that clip. We put up we have made a video, and I don't know if it got to them or not. If we do, somebody flag me, because I'd really like to show that. But I was on Sean Hannity right when my book came out, and I said, I think, that same amount of time, you'll remember, there was a book by Mr. Woodward. Do you remember that book? And he said, he said that the president was crazy, totally crazy. Made this assertion. And this was a New York Times best-selling book in like 5 minutes, and all of Hollywood was celebrating this book. This man is brilliant. He had no degrees that I know of in any sort of behavioral fields, right? Nothing. I wrote a book that released the very same week, and I said the president may quite possibly be the most sound-minded individual to ever occupy the White House. And they said, she's crazy. Her degrees aren't real. Whatever they could think to say. And Sean Hannity on his show warned me. He goes, they're going to want to kill you over this, just about. Their heads are going to explode because you said he's sane. But explain to me how else you withstand the sort of scrutiny that this president and his family, and even their extended friends and family, right, have withstood simply to get up the next day and do it all again. So I wanted to examine what it was in the president's personality, in his upbringing, in his leadership style, in his business experiences, in his own family experiences, all of those kinds of things. What made the man? So I looked at that, and I decided, wow, he is so perfectly equipped for such a time as this. It's almost as if he were just handmade for right now. And we have so much to learn from that. And so what can we learn from that? That was one of the questions I asked in the book. And then I talked about the other side of this, which is the insanity on the left. Now, I have never in my entire life seen anything like the literal level of utter insanity and depravity on the left right now. Never in my life. They've always seemed like maybe behind the scenes there was a lot. I remember thinking when I was about your age and I would go to what was then CPAC, which was really the only conservative event in the entire country at that point. That's the only thing where a lot of people would go. And I remember going to that and thinking, I think these people are socialists. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that if you could read their minds, they're socialists, But now they're proud to be socialists. Oh my goodness, I can't even believe the links they'll go. The Miley Cyrus cake is insane. They want to ban cars. They want to ban cows. Now, I don't know if you guys saw me night before last or 2 nights ago on Sean's show. I talked about they want to ban dodgeball because it's oppressive. It's oppressive. Here's the thing. You know this though, but what they don't understand is if you never get outside of your comfort zone, you never expand your comfort zone. How can you expand something if you just sit inside of it? It's the law of nature. I remember anyway, when my kids were little, I have 23 down to 12 right now. So when my 23-year-old, who's probably a lot of your age, her name is Lyda. Lots of you know my son. I'm not sure, Jack is my son, and I'm not sure that many of you know Lyda, but when she was a baby, I remember we cleaned everything, and I bathed that poor child in that alcohol gel. We called it Goopy. I don't know what it's called, but you know what I'm talking about, the Purell stuff. And I remember thinking, I'm just gonna keep her so clean, she's never gonna get a cold. She was and is the sickest child, and I shouldn't laugh, that's a terrible thing as a mom, but a little irreverent. But you know, because we learned that it's the kids that have their faces in the dirt and lick the dog, right? Those are the kids that are the healthiest, and the kids that we were sanitizing to death, they all have autoimmune problems now. Because you have to get dirty to understand what being clean is and to be healthy. You have to get uncomfortable to get comfortable being uncomfortable, right? But there's a certain point, you all know this because many of you have stood and spoken up here just like I am right now, or done television, or been interviewed on radio or whatever, and you know that first time you did it, it's not that comfortable, and as you keep doing it, you might still get a little butterflies going on, but eventually, you're gonna start to feel comfortable. The left has completely lost that, and do you know why? Have you thought about why? I mean, people aren't just crazy for no reason, right? They're being trained and indoctrinated. You see, if you ended up tomorrow in some country where you were having to stand in a soup line to get food, you would be burning down the walls. You would be going nuts. You would be gathering people that agreed with you, going underground, communicating somehow, developing something so that you could get out of that situation. Why? Because you've been outside of your comfort zone a lot of times, right? They want to train up a generation that literally until the day they leave school, and maybe even the day they leave college, they've never been outside of their comfort zone. Now, what do you think is going to happen the first time that person has to compete in the job market? I don't know, but I'll tell you what, they're going to be really content standing in a bread line. And I know this sounds incredibly cynical, and that's not my point here. I'm a very optimistic person. I'm so optimistic being in a room with you because, as I said, no generation has ever had the opportunity to do what you have the opportunity to do. You are world changers, and that's amazing. So I'm not scared, but I am saying they are literally trying to train them to be in a soup kitchen, to stand there in line for food and hold their hand out because there's no discomfort in that. And so this is where you can go in. Are you seeing the picture I'm painting for you? This is where you can go in and have that conversation with them about being uncomfortable. Everyone can relate on some level about something. I'm an animal person, not an animal rights activist, conservationist, you could say. I respect hunting. I think it's great if you can look your food in the eye before you kill it. I think that's a really important thing. I can't even kill a spider. I start to pass out when I try. I have 9 rescue animals at my house right now. Yeah, they're awesome. Laura Trump is also another huge animal lover, and so I'm at least in good company. But that's usually where I start with leftists, especially young ones, because they're all feeling. They're no thought, they're all feeling. So that's where you start, is wherever you feel the most, right? So if you have an issue that really just speaks to your heart, and every time you think about it, you think, I feel that more than I should. Like me and animals, I should not have 9 rescue animals. But whatever your issue is that you felt, and even if it's just a feeling of isolation, or maybe your parents are divorced, or maybe you lost a loved one early in life, or whatever it is that you feel, that's the place. It doesn't have to be political, by the way. Probably shouldn't be. That's the place where you go in and you connect with that person. And I don't want to be touchy-feely here because I'm really not a touchy-feely person. I'm pretty strong. But I am saying this is where you have to connect with them. It's the only place you can get their attention and pull them in and help them see that you're human, because their side, they've dehumanized you. To them, you are Hitler. Literally Hitler. So how is Hitler going to get you to soften to him? It's not going to be easy, but it can be done. one of my very first, my husband and I, this is gonna blow your mind a little bit. Okay, so my husband and I were offered a reality show a few years ago. And we went ahead and did it, and the name of the show was Wife Swap, if you're familiar. And I thought, you know what, okay, so I'm gonna go to these people's house. I can love anybody, right? I can love anybody. I'll go and I'll just teach my kids, love them, love them, love them. You know, we're Christians, all you have to do is love them. I don't care if they look funny, smell funny, talk funny, say crazy things that you've never heard before, believe things that you know are wrong. It doesn't matter, you don't have to correct them, love them. It's only a week. Well, I was a little surprised about what they did to me, and if you haven't seen the episode, I won't give you the torrid details. But the end of the story is that, you know, I came out of it, and the hate, you can't even believe, on social media. I mean, from the left. It was so vitriolic. I had the unmitigated gall to admit I was a homeschool mom on national television. At that point, I was. Now my kids go to school. Thank you. You too. And I actually brought a Bible with me. So that was bad too, on their point. And so, so the hate that I got was almost, I could almost feel it. I mean, you know, and my friends were trying to defend me, but it always feels like there's so many more trolls, doesn't it? Why is that? Block them, block them, block them. I'm serious. But one of them I saw said something about, you say you're a Christian, but Jesus would never throw a Bible in someone's face like you have. And first of all, I didn't do that at all. I don't even think I quoted scripture on that. I was pretty careful about, you know, I knew my message, and I know the psychology of the left. My dad, by the way, many of you know, is a leftist activist, very leftist activist, very active with Planned Parenthood, has told me unequivocally he will leave all of his money, and he has a lot of it, I'm his only child, to Planned Parenthood, whom I fight just about every single day. So I know the mind of a leftist, right? And I wanted to incorporate that into a book so that other people who really had never lived this could know it, because it's important, because we have to keep pulling them over, and we're right and they're wrong, so we have to show them truth. Anyway, there was one guy who attacked me and said something about me throwing the Bible at him, and I said, I don't even remember how I responded, but I just want to say this. That guy is a New York City gay talk show host, and he, in that moment, DM'd me, and we began a dialogue that has developed into a friendship, and he just wrote a book, and it's dedicated, I didn't know this until yesterday, to me. Because I loved him. That's it. That's all I did. I just loved him. And he has developed some of the greatest memes I've ever seen, and has had a real impact in his community, on his show, and with his friends and family. And so, you know, it's really a little bit like evangelism, although I'm not, you know, I'm like a Calvinist, so I'm not really an evangelist type. But it's more than about the preaching, it's about the hearing, the listening, and the loving. And so I went through the exact steps that I think are really important for those of us as we began to take ground. Because just being us and just helping us be us doesn't get it. We've got to take ground. You know that. This is war. And you're right about one thing I know for sure, because I know you all are so good. I hope you'll all follow me at Real Dr. Gina, and I'll follow you back. Because this is war, our new battleground is really social media. And I love that you all are out there. When I speak to older women's groups, I always say, get on there. Forget your privacy. You have no privacy. They know everything about you. Get on social media. So I know that everyone in this room is fighting there, and that is a battleground, and that's so important. But don't forget to sometimes be loving, too. You can be hard. I said something horrible when Ted Cruz trashed tariffs this morning about Ted Cruz. You can fight back, and you can be strong, and you can be bold, but you don't have to go low, right? And you don't have to get personal, because you're better than that. And I call conservatives out all the time. I debate liberals all the time. I debated Kathy Arue on Sean Hannity's show the other night, and they come after her, and I go back at them, and I say, you know what, be nice, really? That's not who we are. It's not who we are. Doesn't mean you can't fight hard. But that's not who we are. I don't want to take up all your time, because I want to give you a chance to ask a couple questions if there's anything in particular that you want to know about my times with the president. I got to know him pretty well at this point, but lots of you in the room do too, so maybe that's not it, but whatever it is. I can't see, so can someone tell me if there's a hand up? Oh, I see. Okay, right here.
Hi, my name is Megan, and as we can all tell, you're a huge Trump supporter, and so I am as well, and I just want a MAGA hat, but my mother is a never Trumper. She's a Republican, so yeah, she forbade me from getting a MAGA hat, so still don't have that. Anyway, I was wondering how I can help convince her that he's not that bad.
Wow, I have a question for you. How did you come to believe what you believe?
Sorry, what?
I think the secret is here. How did you come to believe what you believe?
So my dad's not never Trumper, so.
Okay, so it's your dad.
Yeah, and also Fox News. Yeah.
They can do that. First of all, I think this girl needs a MAGA hat, and if no one else is going to take care of that, I'm definitely going to take care of that. But keep it at a friend's house. You don't have to hurt your mom with it. I understand. I'd love to have the perfect answer for you. I still have long conversations with the dad that I love very much. I wanted nothing more than to be a liberal. I wanted my dad's approval. He's my only living parent. My mom died, and I'm an only child, and I really wanted my dad's approval, but I can't lie. And so I think the best thing that I say when my dad gets really down on me is I say to him, Dad, if I ever could believe what you believe, I promise you I would, because I want to honor you. And keep it about that honor, and do continue to honor her in the ways you can. And then on this, you're just going to have to, kind of love your way through it and respect her. But I think it's awesome that you just, and there's a good thing about having parents on both sides too, because you really are getting a dose of both sides and you can pick the truth. And that's cool. Yeah.
Hi. How do you know when you have that unshakable foundation or enough of one and not getting trapped in waiting for the perfect or most comfortable moment to take that either leadership position or that opportunity?
That's actually a great question. That's a really great question. And my answer to that would be prayer. But I don't know if you follow along my religious lines or not, but that's generally how I approach everything. I pray my brains out because I really am the most impatient person you could ever want to know. And I've turned down lots of things that sounded really good and everyone around me thought I was crazy, but I just knew that wasn't, I would just have a check. That's the best way I can put it, a check. I would think about it, it sounds so good, but I would have a little check. And every single time it's been right. And every single time there's been something far better and far more appropriate for me right around the corner. So remember that. When you say no to something, there's a great big old garage door opening after you close that little door. So just remember that. Never be afraid to say no. Everything is perfect in its right timing. Yeah. Also, I don't want to forget to mention I'm going to have a book signing right after this, and I'll sign books to whomever you would like them signed to, and happy to do that. We still have time for like one more question if you guys want.
Okay, so I know you mentioned that you homeschooled your kids, and I've kind of experienced both homeschool and public school, and so I've been a little bit fed up with the Common Core system, and I kind of wanted to know what your thoughts on that were.
Yeah, fed up. I mean, I probably shouldn't say this in public, but I think there's a certain role of government, and it's very limited, and it's so far limited beyond what our educational system has become, which is basically an indoctrination machine of our children. I'm not anti, I don't judge anyone for their choices in parenting, for sure, and I've made so many mistakes. My kids will be happy to tell you about all of them, but I do think homeschooling is ideal. I think private schooling is a great second. And I had to think long and hard. My son that we adopted that has Down syndrome has special needs, obviously, and the private schools in Florida were like, I'm sorry, we really don't accommodate special needs. We really just don't have the money and the services there for him. And I ended up sending him to a public school I tried it once, and then I took him back home, and then I tried it again, and then, so we've kind of tried different things with him. So there are purposes, and I can see that. Common Core is a disgrace, and actually most of our education is a disgrace today. They don't want our kids to know history. They don't want us to know real compassion. They don't want us to even understand Western culture or why we're here or what we should love about America. So Common Core is definitely topping that list, but it's riding right along with a lot of other real evils that are in our public schools today, unfortunately. Thank you for your question. I want to share I have just a minute left. I want to share a quick story with you because I love our president. And I want to tell you, I want you to know, how many of you in here know him? Raise your hand if you know him, if you have been around him at all. Because I know they portray him in such a certain way on TV. And I've had the pleasure, let me say, for 16 months while I was campaigning for him, I did not know him. I had never met him. I just liked what he said. I couldn't believe he was taking on illegal immigration. No one else had the courage to do that at that time. Now it's an everyday word, but at the time, Republicans did not say the words illegal immigration. It was racist. And he changed all that. And I lived in San Diego, right on the border. I saw the impact on legal immigrants every single day, and I wanted that problem fixed. And so that was what interested me. And so I started taking my normal Fox hits, normal Fox Business, and I did CNN and MSNBC too, and I started just saying what I thought sounded good that he was saying. But I didn't know him. And then one night, I was at, the very first time I met him, I was at Trump International in Washington, D.C., and he was at dinner there, and Nigel Farage became a friend of mine during the campaign. Yeah, go Nigel. Wow, that's exciting what's happening over there. I need 3 more hours. Can someone, and so Nigel said, you should go up and tell the Secret Service you're here and, meet him and everything. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna. He was sitting with his family, like, I'm gonna go, hi, yeah, no. So anyway, so he comes down the stairs and he's pointing and I'm looking around for who in the world he'd be pointing to. And he's saying all these really nice things, where's this great person, my star, where's this, and he does that with a lot of people. I'm not a star. But anyway, and so he's kind of walking and I keep looking around me for who could it be that's in the room? And he comes over and he says, grabs both of my hands and he says, I know everything you've done. And I want you to know from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate you. Thank you, Gina. And why would he know me? There were thousands of women on TV talking about him through the whole campaign. There's no reason he would know me. I could share with you 1,000 more stories. Many of them are in my book, Mad Politics, which I'm gonna go right now and sign. I hope y'all will come get a picture and get a book signed, and you'll hear a lot more of those stories about Mar-a-Lago and the president and all the other fun stuff that I've done. Thank you for being with me. God bless you. Keep fighting. Stay brave.